Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and boy, I'm glad it's Friday. Man, what a gorgeous day outside.
Beautiful.
I mean, room temperature, abundant sunshine. At least I don't see any rain out there. A few drops came through, I think, but boy, it's nice today, and it's going to get cooler tonight, down into the 50s here in bucolic Watertown, where, by the way, we are preparing for one of the big events in Watertown that we have every year. I mean,
Ooh.
well, there's the big, when the trains come to town, that's a big deal. And, they have shootouts sometimes, and they have all kinds of different trains that come to Watertown because we are train town. Yeah, I mean, we have railroad tracks that come through here and trains, and it's fun when the train comes to town. But tomorrow, the October mile-long yard sale.
Oh, I remember this. Yes.
Yeah, they do this twice a year. They do it earlier than they do it in the fall. And people come from all over, and vendors put out their food trucks, and people come out. And it basically, if you're coming from Nashville, you come out I-40 and you get to the dog food plant, you turn right.
Yeah.
That's how I tell people to get to my house. You go to the dog food plant and you turn right on 70, and from 70 all the way to Watertown, it's about 12 miles. People have already started putting out along that route. See, they're not part of the official mile-long yard sale. They're glomming on to the event is what they're doing. So if you have a house out there, your yard, you're bringing out all the stuff you want to sell. And so, from about the time you leave I-40 headed toward Watertown, it's yard sale after yard sale after yard sale. Then you get to Watertown, and then it's really a yard sale. I mean, don't buy early. Here's what I would say. Pass up the stuff on 70. Come to town. Look there first, because that's where your best stuff is going to be.
That's the cream of the crop.
Then get you an Italian sausage or a hot dog or some kind of vendor food.
Yes.
And then if you want to look at those places on the way back up to I-40, well then that'd be fine. But those people they're sort of cheating. Because they're not paying, they're just taking advantage of the fact that a lot of people are coming to Watertown, so they just throw their stuff out there for free.
They're mooching. They're
mooching off the yard sale is what they're doing. That's right, big moochers. No, it's a fun thing, it really is, and that'll be it. And by the way, you can't. If you want to go somewhere out of Watertown, it's better to just go the long way because, if you go the short way, you're going to be in heavy traffic.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. It's always backed up on there.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm not selling anything. I'm not putting up, stuff to sell. But at some point, down the line, I'm probably going to have to thin this guitar herd that I have. And so I'm going to do it some year. Yeah, I know.
I figured it'd be the 16-foot skeleton that would have to go, not the...
Well, it's actually a 12-foot skeleton.
My fault. My mistake.
And Skeletor is in the front yard and is properly erected and is guarding my property.
Yes.
If you come to Watertown, be sure and come by and take a look at my 12-foot skeleton. In the
you'll
evening,
have trouble
the
missing.
eyes blink and glow.
That's cool.
You were telling me about that the other day. That's wild.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
In the daytime, you can't see it, but when you come at night, the eyes blink. This big 12-foot skeleton. So, this is, I guess this is really my favorite time of year. Truly is. Because, the weather's nice, and, there's a lot of little things going on in communities here and there. And then on Saturday night, I'm going to the Heritage Ball, which, requires the wearing of a tuxedo.
Ooh.
And so unfortunately, my old tuxedo, which I've been wearing for years and years and years, it's probably 20 some odd years old. It doesn't fit anymore because I lost a bunch of weight. And so I had to go rent one.
Sounds like a good problem to have.
Well,
exactly. That's it.
I wanted to buy one, but I couldn't. Nobody had one in my size, so I rented one. It came back in a couple of days. Last time this happened, in fact, the tuxedo that I had, quality problems I'm talking about here, but the tuxedo that I had, you don't know how difficult it is for a big guy to buy clothes. And because nobody carries them. You have to, send off for stuff. And then it comes in and sometimes it fits and sometimes it doesn't. So it's always a hassle when you're a big man like I am, about 6'4", and now I'm about 265. And so I went over and I rented a tux and I picked it up over in Franklin and it fits nice. The last time I did that, I rented a tuxedo. It fit perfectly. I saw him take it out of the box. It was a brand new tuxedo. I said, "Can I buy this tuxedo?" And the guy said, "No, you can't buy it. But if you lose it, it costs you $300. So I said, I don't think this thing's coming back. I think there's a pretty good chance. I'm very forgetful. I think this might get lost. And so that's how I got my last tuxedo. I told them that it got lost, and then miraculously I found it.
Wow!
It was in the dirties. It was in the dirties, and let's just clean this up, and I've already paid for it, so it's mine. I don't know, this tuxedo that I rented, it might get lost.
Can't blame you, man. Sometimes things get tucked under the furniture by accident, or
it can happen.
Hiding on a chair.
It can happen to the most careful of people. You can lose things. So we'll see. No, now they're on to me. Now they'll figure it out.
Exposing your secrets.
Yeah. Very quickly, let's move through actual stuff that we should be talking about instead of yard sales and skeletons and tuxedos.
Hey, that's important.
Well, it is. It's important stuff. It's Friday. You can tell it's Friday because we're all loose today. It's sort of we're a little more relaxed on Fridays than we are other days. About the speaker race, what's going to happen with that? Here's a couple of 2 or 3 stories that I think will be interesting to you. You got Jim Jordan of Ohio, who never wears a jacket but always wears a tie. And that's sort of his signature look, who is running. And then you got Steve Scalise, who is the current majority leader. Both people are held in high regard, and that's why I think neither one is probably going to win on the first ballot. Jordan probably has the edge, and this didn't hurt him at all. Former President Donald Trump has endorsed Jim Jordan to be the next Speaker of the House when lawmakers return to the Capitol next week. Mr. Jordan, head of the House Judiciary Committee and founder of the House Freedom Caucus, is considered to be a favorite by several House Republicans who spoke on background. The Epoch Times previously reported he was the first to officially announce. President Trump showered praise on the Ohio congressman in a post on his social media platform, Truth Social. Here's what the president said. Former President Trump said, "Congressman Jim Jordan has been a star long before making his very successful journey to Washington, representing Ohio's 4th Congressional District, respected by all. Now chairman of the Judiciary Committee as president, I had the honor of presenting Jim with our country's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So much is learned from sports, and Jim was a master." So he goes on and on and on. He's strong on crime, borders, our military vets, Second Amendment. His wife and family are outstanding. He'll make a great speaker and has my complete and total endorsement. That didn't hurt. That didn't hurt at all. President Trump's support for Mr. Jordan was first flagged by Troy Nails, who pointed it out to everybody. He said, "I had a great conversation with President Trump about the speaker's race. He's endorsing Jim Jordan." So that's going on. If you look at the 2 men, Jordan and Scalise, and you look at their conservative ratings, they're not far apart. But what is interesting is the people who are supporting them may be a little further apart. The more conservative members of the caucus seem to be rallying around Jim Jordan, although I think everybody has a tremendous amount of respect for Scalise. Maybe one of the things hurting Scalise is he's got blood cancer, and the question is, do you want to put somebody in that position who's really fighting a good fight? And I think his treatments are going well. That's what I hear. He looks pretty good. But one way or the other, I think that is part of the problem that people are a little concerned about Scalise, as they don't want to go through this again. Confidants of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, according to Axios, are advocating against Steve Scalise. Now you say, well, McCarthy, he got kicked out. Well, he still has a lot of respect in the conference, a lot of respect. And so, people who supported McCarthy and were upset about him being thrown out We'll listen to what he had to say. Driving the news, consultants and staff have been making calls advising members to hold off endorsing the Louisiana Republican Scalise, according to sources. Scalise and House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan are vying for the position. And then you got this guy, Kevin Hearn, who is expected to throw his hat into the ring, but so far has not, as I understand it. It's definitely true, said one lawmaker, that McCarthy, through surrogates, are calling members to support Jordan. Another House Republican characterized an exchange with a McCarthy ally as not advocating for a particular candidate so much as suggesting that they keep their powder dry. In other words, once you make a commitment and you say, well, I'm going to vote for so-and-so, you're pretty locked in. And so there's an old saying, keep your powder dry. Don't let anybody know how you're going to vote until it gets close to time to voting. And then you can say, keep your powder dry so that you don't have to back out of an earlier commitment. One of McCarthy's closest allies, Representative Garrett Graves, took a thinly veiled swipe at Scalise on Wednesday, telling reporters, I think this whole narrative about every member of the existing leadership taking one step up is, well, he used this word. He said that's what it is. And the problem is, if you do move Scalise up, then you got to then have another vote on majority leader and et cetera. And I don't know. I just get the sense. I don't think it'll be on the first round, but I think that probably Jim Jordan has the edge at the moment. Another thing going on with regard to all this is that 45 Republicans have called for a House rules overhaul to get rid of that rule that says that any one person can come to the floor and ask that the seat of speakership be vacated. A group of nearly 46 House Republicans demanding a dramatic overhaul to the chamber rules. The injustice we all witness cannot go unaddressed lest we bear responsibility for the consequences that follow. Our conference must address fundamental changes to the structure of our majority to ensure success for the American people. That's a total of 45 GOP lawmakers signing a letter to their other colleagues. That is as of yesterday, late yesterday. So I think they're going to change that. Matt Gaetz, who used that rule effectively to get rid of McCarthy, said that he was open to a bipartisan compromise on the motion to vacate. It doesn't matter because, he doesn't have the votes. He had the vote to get McCarthy out, but there were only really, understand, 8 people who voted with him. That was sort of the stupidity of the whole thing, in my estimation. You may not like McCarthy, but I don't think 8 people ought to tell, the other 206 people, how that. I believe in representative government. I do. And I just think that 4% shouldn't tell the other 96% how it's going to be. But that was the way it was set up when McCarthy became Speaker, and Gaetz took advantage of it. Then there's this, as we wrap up this first segment on our Friday. Former President Trump reportedly debating whether to travel to Capitol Hill in Washington next week to see if he can unite the Republican caucus as they prepare to nominate a new Speaker of the House. If it is found that perhaps it's not going to be easy to get 218 votes out of the 222 votes that are available, I've heard that, it's Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon has suggested that, then they should make Trump the Speaker for 100 days while it gets worked out. I don't think that's going to happen. It would be fun if he were just Speaker for a couple of days. It would just be fun, wouldn't it? To just watch the liberal heads just explode. It would be just they would die of heart attacks. They wouldn't be able to stand it. But I don't know. Trump shows up, give him a rah-rah speech. I got no issues with that. But I think find the guy, and then or if it's not a guy, whoever, just find the person you want to lead you and get on with it. But given the fact that you have to have 218 votes, I don't think we're going to get this on the first vote next week. 21 past the hour now on Super Talk 99.7.
A new gun control bill possible in the mid-state. Crime in Tennessee. Police needing help in Clarksville looking for a burglar. Plus, some news in the nation's capital concerning Ukraine. That and more 30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And as they say, breaking news changes everything. This is just breaking. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, according to CNN and Politico, now expected to step down from Congress before the end of his term. This according to two sources familiar with his thinking. But he plans to stay at least through the speakership election planned to begin next week. He says this former speaker, however, does not plan to get involved in the two-way race that is developing. Well, if you heard my reporting a moment ago, there are others would disagree with that accounting. But one way or the other, the new news here today is that McCarthy, according to two sources familiar with his thinking, will get out before his term is up. Politico was the first to report this information, also now being reported by other news organizations. We'll keep an eye on that. But that would be, an interesting development, and not surprising development, really, honestly, I think, when you consider, once you've been speaker, I never really did understand why Nancy Pelosi decided to just hang around and be a member. After you've been speaker, how do you get them back on the farm after they've seen gay Paris, was the old saying in World War II. And I think it's sort of true here. Once you've been speaker, everything else would be sort of like, not all that interesting, I would imagine. So anyway, there is that. Again, the breaking news at this hour, McCarthy expected to step down before the end of his term, being reported primarily by Politico. We'll keep you apprised of any new developments as they come available to us this afternoon. In other news, I wanted to talk about the border for just a bit. Democrats are losing their minds over the Biden administration decision to start building border wall again. Here from thehill.com. Biden's decision this week to move forward with border wall construction that Democrats have long denounced shocked allies and immigration advocates. The stunning reversal came days after administration officials participated in an immigration roundtable. The administration's participation drew praise from some members, but did not mention plans to restart the border wall construction. AOC says the president must take responsibility and reverse course. And apparently the thing she's most concerned about, and I'm not surprised, is that they made a decision to waive 26 federal laws to allow the border wall construction. That's the thing that I keep saying. You hear the president say, well, I didn't really. I mean, after holding this position for so long.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration.
He then said, well, I didn't really have any choice.
That's one question on the border wall. The border wall, the money was appropriated for the border wall. I tried to get them to reappropriate, to redirect that money. They didn't. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what it was appropriated.
Yeah.
I can't stop that.
Yeah. Well, it is not quite that an easy an answer. I mean, first of all, you could have held up in court. I mean, I'm glad that they're going to build the border wall. Don't get me wrong. But his argument that, well, I didn't really have any choice, that's all made to sort of ameliorate those on the left who are going to be hacked up. I had no choice. You had a choice. You're not being honest about that. You're making this decision because of the incredible pressure that you're receiving from blue state governors and blue city Democrats who are saying, man, I'm telling you, we've got a problem here, and you need to do something about it. That's why they did all this. Mayorkas, he was in Mexico meeting with Mexican officials, and he got dragged out to, even though he had said that there was an immediate and urgent need to build these walls, and the documents that he sent to get the thing going, he was doing a quick turnaround.
I want to address today's reporting relating to a border wall and be absolutely clear.
Mm-hmm.
There is no new administration policy with respect to the border wall.
That's just not true. There is. They're going to build some border wall, and they said they weren't going to.
Allow me to repeat that.
Yeah, okay.
There is no new administration policy with respect to the border wall. From day one, this administration has made clear that a border wall is not the answer. That remains our position, and our position has never wavered.
Well, it has.
The language in the Federal Register notice is being taken out of context.
No, it's not.
And it does not signify any change in policy whatsoever.
If they truly wanted to stop it, all they had to do was say, well, we're going to have to waive these environmental laws, and let's take that to court. And they could have dragged it out. They could have dragged it out a long, long way, but they chose not to. So, they are getting pressure, and that is why they made the decision to start building wall again. 31 past the hour now.
.331, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 78 degrees, a sunny day in Middle Tennessee, and expecting that this weekend. Highs in the mid 60s to high 60s, lows a little cooler than before, low 40s, but clear skies. Traffic and weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. News 2 reporting at least one gun control bill has been filed for the General Assembly in January. Cookeville Republican State Rep Brian Williams wants it so someone who commits a felony or a misdemeanor of cruelty to animals as juveniles cannot buy guns until they're several years older.
What we found out in most active shooter things is they're young adults. Their lobes aren't frontal lobes are not fully developed.
Williams' bill calls for the ban to last until a juvenile offender turns 25. In Middle Tennessee, Clarksville police are asking for help in identifying an armed man who robbed a Dollar General last night. Officials say the man is around 6'1" and 185 to 200 pounds. Officials are asking if you live near Tracy Lane in that area to check any security cameras you may have in front of your home to see if anything suspicious happened from 9 to 9:30 p.m. And in the nation's capital, 2 top congressional Republicans asking the White House to provide more details about its plan for victory in Ukraine. The request comes as concerns grow about future U.S. funding to support Ukraine's fight against Russia. Justin Finch with more.
In a letter to the Biden administration, House Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Michael McCall and Senate Foreign Affairs Committee Ranking Member James Risch press for more information about the U.S. strategy in Ukraine. The members say they're strong Ukraine supporters, but say the White House has not laid out how continued U.S. aid will lead to Ukraine's victory over Russia after more than a year of war. The letter includes a list of questions and gives the administration until November 6th to respond.
And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
You know, if this time of year it could be warm during the day and cool at night, and you need both your air conditioning and your heater working at optimum efficiency, and if something's done right, well, why don't you call the number I would call? The folks over at Busy Bee, 615-775-7833. They'll come over to your house. They'll buzz right over. They will, and they'll fix whatever is wrong at your hive. They really will. And you listen, I want to tell you, you should consider becoming a member of the Beehive Club, because the way you avoid these problems is with preventative maintenance in many cases. And that's what the Beehive Club is all about. You'll get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, 1 aimed at heating, 1 aimed at cooling, and 1 aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner for satisfaction guaranteed. Call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybehvac.com. It is 38 minutes now past the hour. We need to bring you up to date. There's been an update on the update, so let me give you this. This just in. Apparently, Kevin McCarthy, is not going to leave before the end of his term. This, according to Fox News, it's Brett Baier, who apparently has McCarthy's phone number, called him up and asked him, and he said directly, "No, I'm not leaving. I have no intents and no idea of leaving before my term is up." It was reported by CNN and by Politico that this was the case, that McCarthy was going to leave after the speakership battle was over and was not going to hang on as a member of Congress long after that. But now, according to McCarthy directly, talking to Brett Baier of Fox News, he says that is not true. So, never mind. Maybe should have waited a moment or two to let that settle out. Yeah, we try to give you the stuff as it's breaking, and sometimes this does happen, But again, the new development is now McCarthy, speaking directly to Brett Baier of Fox News, says, "No plans to leave before my term is up." So there we go. We had a situation. I want to find that story here. I got this story that when I went, wow, that's sort of wild. It had to do with, I don't know. I can't find it now. Don't you hate it when you can't find it? I've got hundreds of pages here, and I can't find it. Well, there was a story about breaking somebody who went in and did not a smash and grab, but just basically walked into the Gucci store over Green Hills and then took a bunch of Gucci stuff. We hear all these smash and grab things happening in California, and I've always said, well, thank goodness we don't live there. We got rampant law and disorder. Here it is. Police say they're looking for a navy blue Toyota Camry. More than $50,000 worth of Gucci merchandise was damaged and thousands more stolen by shoplifting suspects on Friday, the 29th of September at the Gucci store at Green Hills Mall. Police said 3 suspects, a woman and 2 men, entered the Gucci store and took thousands of dollars. And as they fled the store, one of them pepper sprayed the store, and the pepper spray got all over other Gucci merchandise, rendering it worthless. Can't sell it if it smells like pepper spray. Police say they left in a blue Toyota Camry with damage on the driver's side door. Car had a temporary tag, and anybody who knows anything about it is asked to call Crime Stoppers. And I've been talking about, the rampant crime that we seem to have in the Nashville area, Davidson County. I recounted a bunch of stories yesterday, shooting here, shooting there, what seems like an awful lot of meanness. And now we have, evidence of something like a smash and grab at the Green Hills Mall. And I'm saying, crime is a problem here. And I also said yesterday, and I'm having a running battle with the guy who follows me on social media, who thinks I'm being unfair to the current mayor by talking about this. Well, I'm just talking about what is, and suggesting that instead of using all of the federal money that he's getting for feel good, we're gonna have influencers. We're gonna hire a bunch of influencers who are gonna tell everybody how bad crime is. I said, why don't we hire some police? Why don't we hire some prosecutors? Why don't we use that money to actually take violent criminals off the streets? And that's not necessarily criticism. It's a recommendation. It's a suggestion to the mayor, but one way or the other. I also said yesterday, you should look at what they did in Dallas. Mayor Eric Johnson, the mayor of Dallas, is calling out the culture of lawlessness in Democrat-run cities after announcing that he's switching his party affiliation. Mayor Eric Johnson joined Fox and Friends and others. He's talked about this immediately for an exclusive interview. Very soon after the whole defund the police nonsense started, he says, activists showed up at my house trying to intentionally scare my family and scare my children, scare me into changing my very, very clear position that we were not going to do that in Dallas. That's really was the sort of eye-opener in terms of what was going on. I grew up in the streets. I actually know what the people over there want. They told me what they want. They want to live in a safe neighborhood, and they don't want the police to leave. They want more police. They want the police to be trained well. They want them to be practitioners of community policing. But they do want them there. They didn't want the police department defunded. I felt like you could actually be a true law and order, fiscally responsible Democrat, and I would have done that. I tried, but they said, basically he couldn't find any favor for that position within the Democrat Party. So he changed parties. He's now a Republican. When asked about how the black community will respond to the move, he said, I believe that in time they're going to start to ask themselves, why are we still Democrats? We trust him. He never let us down. I believe this is actually going to be a beginning in Dallas for African Americans communities that I represent for so long, saying we need to give the Republican Party a look, especially today. He's been a vocal supporter of police. And, the amazing thing is that as they toughened up their police enforcement, I mean, I'm not talking about violent police officers like they had in Memphis. I'm talking about law enforcement officers who simply go out there and do their job. They arrest people. They go to jail. They are set a bond. They are given an opportunity to make their case before a jury of their peers, and they are convicted and sent to jail. That's the last part is what we're not doing. That's not on the mayor. That's on a whole different part of people. But I'm telling you, we need to back up our police officers who are doing their part by making the arrest and fighting crime on the street. Now let's make sure we get some of these people convicted. Put them in. I mean, I'm not saying if you're not guilty, that's fine, man. You got a jury trial and the judgment of your peers were that you were not guilty. That's fine. But take them into trial and at least make the case that they should indeed have consequences for their actions. The Dallas mayor has driven down crime rates dramatically in Dallas. And all they had to do was they had to take violent criminals off the street. You say, well, I don't know, we can't put everybody in jail. Well, you know what? If we start putting a few people in jail because they have committed violent crimes, word gets around pretty quick that there are indeed consequences for behavior. And you don't want to end up like your friend, then you better get on the straight and narrow. Word will get around, but you can't flinch from doing what you should do, which is make arrests. Send them to trial. If you get a conviction of the jury of their peers, make sure they do the maximum time behind bars. That's what is lacking. That last part is what, try them. Don't do a plea deal. Don't cut some kind of, backroom deal. Just go out there and actually prosecute a few cases. And we've got $5 million, as I understand it, that has been given to the city of Nashville, Davidson County, in recent days by the federal government, and they're using them for all these feel-good programs. And what I would say is, okay, all good and fine, I suppose, but maybe we would do a little better in the crime area if we just backed up our police, funded maybe more police. I think we're still shorthanded on police in Davidson County, Nashville. And then make sure that when they are convicted that they do time. Take them to trial. I think that's where it's really breaking down, is I don't think we're taking many people to trial. And you'll hear, well, we don't have the funding. Okay, well, let's give them some funding. Let's take some of that feel-good money and give it to the prosecutors and make them actually take some people to trial. The town's getting rough. The town is getting to be a place where, a lot of people are now starting to say, I don't know if I feel safe in Nashville anymore. Used to be that, you didn't feel that way, but it's really getting out of control. And again, that's not an attack on the mayor. It's simply a recommendation, Mayor, that you have certain funds. Let's use them in a different way that might actually do some good. And if you want some advice on how to do that, you probably would do real well to talk to the Dallas of Mayor, Eric Johnson, because he's gotten it figured out. He has driven crime down. And Dallas is a much safer place as the result of the policies of this once Democrat, now Republican mayor. I don't really expect that Freddie O'Connell is going to do that, but what's wrong with that? By the way, in Philly, The DA, apparently, according to hotair.com, not very happy about, not too upset about the mass lootings. The mass looting sprees and violence against both pedestrians and police in Philadelphia have been too much for even the legacy media to ignore. Retail stores, state liquor distributors, pharmacies have been utterly destroyed and emptied of anything that could be sold on the black market, while the city's understaffed law enforcement units struggle to bring down at least a few of the gangsters. But to their credit, they've managed to make at least some arrests. What will happen to these violent vandals remains an open question. The city's infamous district attorney, Larry Krosner, was asked about it yesterday. He appears to be taking a wait-and-see approach. Okay, see, there you go. That's what I think is happening here. D.A. Funk, let's get after it. Mayor O'Connell, let's start supporting in a bigger way your police department. And okay, if you feel like you need to do some of the community policing stuff, that soft, feel-good stuff, okay, that's fine too, but not at the expense of actually doing the number one job of a mayor, making sure your town is safe. Public safety is always job number one if you're mayor. Right behind, it's number one, and number two is potholes. Get the first one right, get the second one right, and you'll be mayor for a long time. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Everseal is really an amazing product. Let me talk to you about what it really is. It's a sealant that is used on exterior wood and concrete. It's actually been around for ages. It was used in industrial applications for many, many years. But the folks over at Everseal figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. Process starts with a deep cleaning, goes all the way through your wood and concrete to make it look as new as it possibly can look. And then they use this patented sealant, which absorbs all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete to prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. 30 to 50 years. Wow. I mean, think about all the money you would save over that period of time. Think about all the time you would save, not having to go out every year and seal your deck and to seal up your concrete. Now, if this sounds like something that would work for you, and I can't imagine why it wouldn't. I mean, how would you like to not just think about it once and then forget about it? That sounds good, doesn't it? Steve Nelson and his team over at Everseal will help you out. Here's the number, 1-844-EVER-USA. 844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
President Biden commenting on the latest jobs report as well as criticizing the federal budget negotiations going on in the House and GOP. A possible gun control bill in Tennessee and some crime right here in the volunteer state. That and more at 4 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, let's take a look at what's going on in market news. A good day on the Dow. I mean, it's actually been a big roller coaster day. It started out going down, and then it rebounded. Dow Jones Industrial ended the day up 288 points. S&P up 50. NASDAQ up 211. But this is all basically coming after a big, hot jobs report. John Maxson from Beacon Capital Management is standing by with more of that. John, one of those things where you have a situation, it sounds good that there are more jobs, but there is a downside to it as well.
That's right, Brian. You know, the market actually was down hard based on that jobs report. Expectation was about 170 jobs created last month. It came in not just a little hot, came in really hot, 336,000 jobs, much more than expected. The market went down hard, and then it had the biggest intraday comeback it's had since the banking crisis in March. It turned around quite a bit. And so instead of focusing on bad or good news being bad news, the market said, hey, good news is good news, at least for today. But the pressure is going to be on the Fed now as to whether or not they're going to be able to keep rates steady. And it's the last labor information before the next Fed meeting. So next week, we'll get more information on inflation and Fed minutes. So that's what we're going to be watching moving forward. But a big-time job report today.
Yep. Okay. You learn more about all the things that they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is now 57 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 78 degrees right now in Nashville. Got a complete weather forecast, a traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. The Labor Department says the U.S. economy added 336,000 jobs in September. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 3.8%. And President Biden commenting on the report, crediting Bidenomics. And after those remarks, the president criticizing the GOP concerning federal budget negotiations. Karen Travers.
President Biden says the September jobs report is good news, but he also warned about the potential consequences of a government shutdown if Congress doesn't pass legislation before funding runs out on November 17th. The president putting pressure on House Republicans.
It's time to stop fooling around. House Republicans, it's time for you to do your job.
The president said it's time to get to work for the American people, saying they're waiting and watching.
And the House is adjourned until next Wednesday. In Tennessee, News 2 reports that a gun control bill has been filed for the upcoming General Assembly. Cookeville Republican State Rep Ryan Williams wants to make it so anyone who's committed a felony or a misdemeanor of cruelty towards animals as a juvenile can't buy guns legally until they're 25 years old.
My thought is how can we delay, not prevent them from being able to buy a weapon in the future, but how can we delay that so that there's actually a penalty to them for committing those acts and so that they can reestablish themselves.
Williams says most active shooters are young adults whose brains are not fully developed. And we are now hearing what it sounded like as in Orange County, California, deputies responded to an active shooter at a biker bar. It happened in August. 3 victims plus the shooter were killed. Alex Stone.
The gun battle heard on deputy body-worn cameras as they arrived on scene and took fire.
It's on the right side, right side.
It took time for deputies to figure out where the gunfire was coming from.
The big tree, right behind the big tree. Big tree? Yeah.
Eventually, they shot and killed the shooter, a retired cop who was angry at his wife. She was at the restaurant that night. Finally, deputies were able to move in.
It's this guy right here. This is gunman right here. This is gunman.
The 59-year-old gunman was found dead. He had been hiding behind a tree.
Crime in the volunteer state. News 2 says the Metro Police K-9 assisted in catching an 18-year-old and putting him into custody. It was last night in the Edge Hill area when a Chevy Malibu was reported stolen. Officers tried to pull the Malibu over. That's when the teen attempted to run away, but that K-9 tracked him down. The teenager currently charged with evading arrest. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. Second hour of the drive now underway. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and we're so glad that you're here with us on FARB Friday. You know, this is the day that we do the Phone Your FARB Friday segments at 4:35 and 5:35, where you get to, get on the soapbox and have your say. So, get your best thoughts together. That'll be coming up at, as I said, 4:35 this hour. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on with regard to the 2024 election. If you look at the numbers, I'm just going to give you, I don't want to just get into doing this every day, but I mean, Trump just running away with the Republican nomination. There's a poll out there that says that, he's like more than 50 points ahead of DeSantis. And, it just seems like Trump has got this nomination fairly sewed up. That's the way it looks right now. I don't see anything that's likely to change that on the horizon. And, just almost impossible to overcome a 50-point deficit if you're DeSantis or anybody else for that matter. So that seems to be sort of, where we are. And it's driving the liberals absolutely, what I like to call guano crazy. Guano crazy. Yeah, look it up. And you'll get some sense of this when you hear Hillary Clinton speak. She says, well, it's those MAGA people. It's those MAGA people. And they're just, one time she called them, the basket of deplorables. Now she's saying we need to send them off for deprogramming.
Sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
That's our problem. Half of America needs to go for reprogramming. What does she think this is? Does she think this is the old Soviet Union where, you get sent off to re-education camps? I mean, maybe she thinks it's communist China where that happens as well. If you don't agree with what the party tells you that is right, then you're arrested and you're sent off for, reprogramming, re-education camps. And you're not allowed to come back until you spout the party line. That apparently is what she thinks needs to happen. She is such a bitter woman. I mean, she still just cannot believe she got beaten by Trump. It just eats at her every day. She hates Donald Trump with a passion. And you know what? It's not Trump's fault that she lost. It's her own damn fault she lost. She's got nobody to blame but herself. You know what really happened? I mean, the truth of the matter is how she lost is that, it was nip and tuck there. And then at the end, She was believing her own polling data, which said that it was going to be a rout. And rather than take the time to think about it logically and to think about electoral votes and the electoral strategy that she needed to win, she just went for the big win. She went for the popular vote win. She wanted to crush this guy. I don't know what happened that night. I have a suspicion that she was crushed and maybe a little tipsy. And she couldn't come out and even acknowledge it. She couldn't even face her supporters. I mean, they were so certain that they were going to win that they'd spent, I forget, some ungodly amount of money on fireworks. And they had taken, as they often do, they had put balloons in the ceiling, and she was going to come out, and the fireworks were going to go off, and the balloons were going to fall, and it was just going to be, a celebration of Hillary. And then all of a sudden, they learned the hard, cold truth that Donald Trump has beaten them because he actually played a good electoral college strategy, and she had not done that in the last few days. And she's been bitter and angry, and it just eats her away. She is one of the most unhappy people that walks the planet at this time. She can't find favor with much of anything. Boy, how would you like to live with that? That's a good thing Bill Clinton doesn't actually do that. He doesn't really live with her all that much. So, Hillary Clinton, she's saying we all need to be reprogrammed. That's what's going to be necessary, she says, during this election season. Take all of the people who support Donald Trump, which is, roughly half of America, and just, send them off to re-education camps. Boy, unbelievable. As far as other 2024 news goes, here's this. Republicans are debating the value of further debates without Trump as he dominates the race. After skipping the first two, and claiming he wouldn't participate in a November 8th debate in Miami, Trump's campaign ratcheted up its influence on the RNC this week when it called for the third debate to be scrapped. The Republican National Committee should immediately cancel the upcoming debate in Miami and end all future debates in order to refocus its manpower and money on preventing Democrats' efforts to steal the 2024 election. The Trump campaign isn't the only team raising ire with the RNC. Both former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy have complained about the handling of the debate process when the RNC blocked a joint appearance the two had set to hold with Fox News host Bret Baier on Tuesday. The other rivals have called for higher eligibility criteria. Look, nobody's going to get him. What in the world are we doing? We've had two debates. It hasn't moved the needle for anyone. Well, it may have moved the needle a little bit for Nikki Haley because she's doing better in New Hampshire, but not even close to the support that Donald Trump has. She's got a real battle on her hands. DeSantis, again, how do you overcome a 50-point lead in the national polls? You look at Iowa. Trump leads not by as big a margin as he does elsewhere, but he leads him by a substantial margin. Same thing in New Hampshire, leads by a substantial margin. South Carolina, substantial margin. And if you're Nikki Haley and you can't win South Carolina, doesn't that tell you something? Former governor there, and Trump is he's sewed up so much of the support. And people are so loyal and dedicated to him. But maybe that'll all change when Hillary has everybody off to the reprogramming camps. Where would you hold those camps? California, I suppose, right? We all want to be like California. The second debate was widely panned, according to the Washington Examiner, for the chaotic moments. Boy, I agree. It was almost unwatchable. It featured the candidates repeatedly talking over one another, interrupting the debate moderators, and generally not convincing viewers that Trump could be dethroned from his perch atop the GOP. Several RNC members even slammed the previous Trumpless debate. I think the only way you salvage it is if you get the frontrunner there, and he's not going to participate. Why would you? Why would you go if you're Trump, why in the world would you go onto the debate stage with people who are 50 points behind you or more? What in the world do you think you're going to accomplish by doing that? All they'll do is they'll just sit there and take pot shots at you, and you know what? You don't have to subject to yourself that if you're that far ahead. There's a way to be taken seriously in politics, and that is to get support. And the only guy who truly has a lot of support right now is Donald Trump on the Republican side of the equation. 2024 news, other news. Democrats are terrified about the idea of independent candidates running, third-party candidates. And we hear, what is it? Here it is. A campaign staffer tells Mediaite, and it's been reported elsewhere, that Kennedy's campaign, RFK Jr., will announce a party affiliation switch. He will move from being a Democrat to being an independent, and he will run as an independent. And the Democrats are terrified of someone running as a third-party candidate. But, it looks like we're going to have third and fourth and maybe even fifth-party candidates. That's not unusual. You do usually have minor candidates who run. Nobody really votes for them, not in a big way. But RFK has some appeal to many people who are libertarian. And so, I don't know who that helps or hurts. The question is, who does it help or hurt? And I think it hurts the Democrats, Kennedy name, etc. Here's a guy by the name of John Fortier. He's sort of one of these pundits. He says, on one hand, he's a Democrat with a famous name, but he is clearly of more interest today to voters on the right. In this case, it's not clear that Republican-leaning voters who like RFK Jr. might not also like Trump as well and would not want to throw away a Trump vote. Yeah, see, I don't think he trumps Trump. He's pulled a surprising amount of polling support among Democrats, hitting 20% earlier this year. But his campaign argues that he's more popular with would-be Trump supporters, which might play in his decision to go independent. So if you got 20% of the Democrats and then you picked up some Trump support, some of the people who are normally would support Trump, RFK, might be a formidable. The most effective third-party campaign that's been run in modern times has been Ross Perot, who pulled 19% of the vote. Kennedy's right there right now the way it looks. So it'd be interesting if you poll him separately as an independent, how that might play out. And then you've got the No Labels Party, which is making a noise like they're going to jump into the race. And if they jump into the race, it seems the way they're talking that it might be Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who would be their standard bearer. Cornell Green, who is a member of the Green Party, has also announced that he's going to run as an independent. Every time I see this picture of him, he looks like some kind of wild-eyed radical from the 60s. This is from the Post-Millennial. American philosopher, progressive activist, and presidential candidate Dr. Cornel West has said he will decide to ditch the Green Party in favor of running as an independent. So, I mean, we may have as many as three sort of viable, at least name-recognizable candidates who would run in this 2024 election, making it very, very different than most elections that we have seen in recent days. As long as we're on 2024 news, the Tennessee Senate race between Marsha Blackburn and Democrat Gloria Johnson, part of the Tennessee Three, it's raising money. Gloria Johnson raised $1.3 million in the first quarter, and Blackburn is said to have raised $2.7 in quarter three, touting her conservative values. Look at it. Gloria Johnson can raise as much money as she wants, but in a state that is overwhelmingly Republican, I just can't see many Republicans crossing over to vote for Gloria Johnson. So let the Democrats spend their money on that race. I don't think it's going to do any good, not a bit of good. 2024, it's shaping up to be a very interesting year, and we'll keep an eye on it, of course, every day right here on Super Talk 9097. You can count on us to give you the very latest. I'm not going to try not to bore you with a lot of poll numbers going forward because the poll numbers seem to be, pretty set. Trump will, unless something huge happens that we don't foresee, win the Republican nomination. What's the only question is what's going to happen with the Democrats? Are they truly going to nominate Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to be their standard bearers? And if they do, how much will these third-party candidates take away from Joe Biden? It's going to be very, very interesting to watch. 20 minutes now, past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management, they understand it can be a little scary. But here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed so you can enter retirement with peace of mind. Wouldn't that be great to know that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call, 615-488-9303. The folks at Beacon will ask you a few questions. You provide them some information, and then that's all you need to do. Sit back and wait for their assessment of what you've got going on. You have nothing to lose except for the worry. Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing that your goals and retirement have been met. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, the number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
An update on the UAW strike, some crime in Tennessee, thousands of dollars of merchandise stolen from a mall, and those burglars still on the loose. Plus some money news, that and more 30 minutes after the hour at 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is make it 25 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. I got Mac Morey in the newsroom, and he'll join us again at 5:25 for his special breakout segment. It's a fan favorite called The Wide, Wide World of Sports with Mac Morey. Or is it Mac Morey's Wide, Wide World of Sports? I can't remember. I never really wrote it down, so one way or the other, we'll talk about the Titans game coming up. Mason Fleming has been filling in for Chris Webber all this week, doing an exceptionally good job.
Way to go, Mason.
I'm trying,
so
pushing
much,
a lot
Mason,
of buttons.
Yeah, you pushed a heck of a lot of buttons this week, I'll tell you. I wanted to do a little economic news here, and the White House is convinced that they have great news, and that a bunch of jobs have been added, and according to a jobs report, a lot more. I think they were looking for about 107,000 was the estimate. America created 336,000 jobs in September. Now, this is one of those things that, that I hate about economics. You would think that, wow, more people going back to work, that's a great thing. And it is. I mean, there's something about the dignity of work that's so important. And I would much rather have Americans working rather than be out of work. So that's a positive thing. But the negative side of it is that it suggests that the economy is still a bit too hot. And when the economy is hot, the Fed will raise interest rates again because, obviously what follows is inflation, et cetera, and they're trying to kill off inflation. Where are we today? Okay, when Biden took office, inflation was at 1.4%. It climbed all the way up to 9% at one point. It now stands at about 3.7. They say we're not going to be happy until it gets to 2. We'll keep, and so they're looking at the market trying to negotiate this so-called soft landing of the economy by raising interest rates and raising interest rate. We're headed toward 8% on interest rates right now. Whew. Wow. By the way, when Biden took office, gas was about $2 a gallon. Now, on average, $3.75. So people are going backwards. They may be working, and then some of them are getting pay raises, but not enough to keep up with the rate of inflation. Effectively, you have taken a 3.1% pay cut when you look at the cost of things and how high they have gotten since Biden took office. But 336,000 jobs, putting pressure on the Fed to hike again. Housing experts say 8% mortgage rates do not seem unlikely. So what they're saying is the double negative there. It seem likely. 8% mortgage rates seem likely. Rates remain at a 23-year high. The rate on the average 30-year fixed mortgage increased to about almost 7.5 this week. Rates are at the highest point since December of 2000 for a second week in a row, with few signs of softening. Steeper rates continue to smother home buyer demands, forcing the price-conscious to the sidelines, or those who just can't quite scrape up the money because, well, interest rates keep going up, and just about the time you think you got enough money, they go up again and you don't have enough money. It's interesting that all of this is happening, but actually home prices, although they're not going up like they were for a while, they are still going up. The value of your home, you probably haven't lost any value in your home. You may have even gained some, even though interest rates are high and the market has a lot of inventory out there. Where were the jobs? It seems to me that I looked at a chart, and I don't have that chart available to me, but I looked at a chart earlier, and it said that the vast majority of these jobs were in entertainment and hospitality, hotels, bars, restaurants, that kind of thing. And then there's a question about oil. I've told you that I thought we might head to $100 a barrel, and it has come down. It's well below 90 now. But the reason that it's now down below 90 has to do with the fact that they think the economy is going to not be as productive as it was, and a depressed economy may be on the horizon, and that means there'll be less demand for oil. I don't know. OPEC seems to be keeping its cuts in place, and unless we start drilling for more oil, there's going to come a time, many experts say, when oil goes to $150 a barrel. If it does that, imagine what your gasoline and diesel are going to cost. And so the president was asked about all this today.
Look, I got to choose my words here. You all are not the happiest people in the world. What you report, and I mean it sincerely. It gets you get more legs when you're reporting something that's negative. I don't mean you're picking on me, or I'm just the nature of things. You turn on the television, and there's not a whole lot about boy saves dog as he swims in the lake. To say it's about somebody pushed the dog in the lake. I mean I get it, but.
And then there's a long pause here. A long pause here.
If you just listen to what's going on around the world, there's reason for people to be concerned.
Mm-hmm.
There's reason for people to be concerned what's going on.
Where's he going with this?
In Russia, there's reason to be concerned about what's going on in other parts of the world. I think that the American people are smart as hell and know what their interests are. I think they know they're better off financially than they were before. It's a fact.
No, it's not a fact. It's not a fact. That last part, that they're better off than they were before,
are smart as hell and know what their interests are. I think they know they're better off financially than they were before. It's a fact.
You be the judge of whether that's a fact or not. How does it feel to you out there? 31 minutes past the hour.
.431, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. It's 78 degrees right now in Nashville, and it's going to be a beautiful weekend. Clear skies, but cooler temperatures, lows in the 40s this weekend. Full weather forecast, the latest traffic report, headed your way in 5 minutes. The United Auto Workers say they've made tremendous progress in negotiating an end to their 3-week-long strike against the big three automakers. Andy Field brings us the latest.
UAW President Shawn Fane saying his striking workers and General Motors reached one major deal.
GM has now agreed in writing to place their electric battery manufacturing under our National Master Agreement.
And
we've been told for months that this is impossible.
Fane says the 3-week-long strikes has provided the pressure for car makers to finally compromise and make a deal.
Crime in Tennessee, multiple people still being searched for after stealing thousands of dollars worth of Louis Vuitton merchandise from the Green Hills Mall. This happened in mid-September. Officials believe that the group has committed thefts in other areas of the city as well. Metro has now released photos of these criminals and are offering a cash reward for those who can offer any information that'll lead to an arrest. And now over to the latest money news with Daria Albinger.
From ABC News Wall Street now, it was a major rebound for the markets. The Dow soared 288 points. It had been down about 300. The Nasdaq rose 212 points, and the S&P added 50 for the day. Stocks dropped early in the session on worries of what a better-than-expected job report could mean for interest rates. Employers added 336,000 jobs in September, far more than the 170,000 economists were predicting. A robust job market has been a major driver of inflation. The United Auto Workers says it won't expand strikes against Detroit's big three automakers now that General Motors made a breakthrough concession on unionizing electric vehicle battery plants. Union President Shawn Fane says GM's move will change the future of the union and the auto industry. A 3-day strike by employees at healthcare giant Kaiser Permanente is ending, but their union says it's planning a bigger walkout for November if they don't reach agreements on pay and working conditions by then.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, it's 39 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. And you know what we do on Fridays at about this time and at about this time in the next hour? A little thing we like to call Phone Your FARB Friday. You know the drill, 615-737-9986. This is your opportunity to climb up on our 100,000-watt soapbox and express yourself within boundaries, because it is a family show, so behave yourself. Maybe you have a burr under your saddle. Maybe you have a burr under your saddle, or a bee in your bonnet, or even a bug in a place where hopefully you never really ever get a bug. But all you got to do is call that number, 615-737-9986. And engage. There's so much going on. You got the thing with the speaker thing going on. You got Hillary calling for your deprogramming. What is on your mind today? 615-737-9986. Let's get all those phones filled up. This is your chance to express yourself on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I love this part of the thing because it really is a chance for you to sort of, interact. So many times we direct the question that we want you to talk about. But here in this segment, the thing we do is that we sort of just open it up for whatever's on your mind. And I learn a lot from this. I do. I learn a lot because, sometimes you will tell me things that I hadn't even thought about. So 615-737-9986. I got a lot of phone lines open, folks. Let's get busy. We'll start with Harvey calling from Kingston Springs. I need Harvey from Kingston Springs. Yeah. There it is. Hi, Harvey. You're on with Brian on the drive. So what's on your mind today, Harvey?
Ben, we were talking about RFK this weekend, and he just hasn't said, I haven't heard him say anything that I really disagree with. What do you think about him as Trump's vice president?
Not much.
I just
honestly,
do you think he'll stick with the independent?
I don't know. I think he'll probably choose somebody that the idea, if you're smart as a presidential candidate, is picking and running a mate that can do you some good. I don't know. Maybe RFK, but I don't get that sense, and I'm not sure that RFK would be interested in running with Donald Trump.
The thought was that it kind of guarantees a Kennedy back in the House for one, and for Trump, it's kind of the ultimate flipping of the bird to the Democrats of, hey, I got your best chance, and now he's mine.
Yeah, you know what? I want to know what other people think about that idea, and maybe they'll call in and tell us. Yeah, I think that's a great topic for conversation, and maybe some folks will have some opinions about that. Harvey, thank you for the call. Let's go to Brian in Lawrence. Brian, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say? And by the way, I have to know, do you spell it the proper way? With an I or with a Y?
Yes, I spell it with the I, even though it's the name of the bologna company, but that's not how I spell. I spell with the I.
Okay, I'm glad that your parents got that right. So what's on your mind, Brian?
Well, I've got a school of thought here. Let's assume that about the Republicans asked Trump to be interim speaker. Could there be a situation to where that Trump could have the authority, maybe impeach Biden, and then get into the White House and finish Biden's term, and then win the 2024 election?
Well, I don't think that's likely to happen. I mean, let me take that back. It could theoretically happen. I don't think that Trump is going to be chosen in that way. I'd be very surprised if Trump became the interim speaker. I don't know. Maybe there's some thought to it, and I need to, to check with some of my sources. But my sense of it is it's going to be somebody that's currently in the House. There is a thing called Rule 26, which some people say would prevent Trump from being the speaker because he's currently under indictment, and you can't have somebody in leadership who's under indictment. I don't know, but that's why I've heard people say that. It seems like you'd have to get rid of Rule 26 for that to happen. I don't know. But I guess I mean, theoretically, if they chose him and if he was speaker and then he led an impeachment, but it's never going to be a conviction because the Senate would have to take action. And the Senate's
Right.
controlled by Democrats, so.
Yeah. Well, let me throw another one. You think Jim Jordan will be the front runner then for the speakership?
As I said earlier today, and I'll hit it again here in the next hour, I do believe that Jim Jordan has the edge as it stands right now. That doesn't mean that that will change, but the way things look, since Trump has endorsed him, I think he's got a little bit of the edge. Thank you for the call, Brian. Greatly appreciate it. Vincent in Cedar Hill. Hello, Vincent. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What's on your thought today on this Phone Your FARB Friday?
Good afternoon, sir. My issue is our national debt, and I'm tired of us repeatedly sending Republicans there with promises to cut spending, and nothing ever gets cut. And they all play games because you know as well as I do, they have programs where they have automatic like 7% increases every year. And if they cut that to 2%, then they'll report to us, we're cutting their budget 5%. They didn't. They're still going up 2%. So they're not honest with us. They don't cut the budget. And we're sending our kids and our grandkids into servitude because we're not responsible and we can't live without our means. And something has to change.
You know, the problem is everybody wants to bring home the bacon. Every member of Congress wants to be able to come back and say, look what I got for you. Look what I brought you. I got you this new bridge. I got you this new road. I got you this, that, and the other. I mean, that's the problem, is that no member of Congress wants to come home empty-handed. And we are just spending much more money. What, about $2 trillion a year more than we're bringing in? We're bringing in 5 and we're spending 7. And, that I don't know. You can't run a business that way. If you ran a business that way, you'd be out of business pretty quick. So, yeah, I agree with you. It is frustrating. It is frustrating. And I don't know how you fix that except to tell people, I am electing you, but you don't have to bring anything back. Well, you know what? You send that money to Washington. You do want some of it to come back. It'd be better if they just let you keep it. But, I mean, you generally do want some of that to come back. And that's the problem, is that they're just bringing more projects back home than they have money to pay for. Cindy in Franklin. Cindy, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Cindy?
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
I just heard you mention something about Hillary Clinton and her wanting to, reprogram us or whatever. I just wanted to bring up, I don't know, we've got this situation in government where they seem to control the media. They seem to control everything we say and do, and they seem to control the Republicans and the Democrats alike. So I just want to bring back to your attention, when Clinton first got in office, do you remember Filegate?
Yes, absolutely.
It just seems like she took all of that information, she brought up, and I believe, I don't have proof, of course, but I believe that she threatened her political, Bill Clinton's political opponents. She brought up the spin zone with the media, and that's who's controlling everything. And I don't know why she's getting away with it.
Yeah, because they're the Clintons. I don't know. They do seem to be pretty slippery, don't they? I mean, no matter what gets thrown at them, somehow, well, I'll tell you, they have fixers. They have some really, really bright people who are buried deep within different elements of the government and who will come to their rescue. People that they turn to time and time and time again. I mean, attorneys and really smart people who know how to navigate effectively Washington, D.C. in a way that, others don't. And they somehow always slip out of it. Always. You're right.
Well, they do. And I think there's only one way to handle this. And I mean, it seems pretty extreme. But, when somebody's threatening people who have maybe had a lot of sins in their past, Andy Ogles is in Congress, and I think that we need to have a week of pardons for those who will confess that Hillary Clinton and the Clintons have threatened them or been intimidated by them, if they want to just go ahead and confess their sins and be pardoned for them so that there is nothing anybody can hold over their head, I think that's what we need to get this government back under control.
A week of pardons. I like that. I like that. It's sort of like, Festivus. Everybody can air their grievances. Instead of airing their grievances, they will air their sins and ask for the pardon. Yeah, well, that's a pretty interesting idea. Cindy, thank you so much. I appreciate you participating today. Got time for one more this round. Bonnie in Lebanon. Bonnie, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Bonnie?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
You bet.
I am really concerned about all these illegal people, whoever they are, from whatever country they're coming from. I have great concern about our children. Like my sister has a granddaughter. She just turned 15. How are these kids going to have a decent job? I mean, they're saying the jobs are out there, but these illegals, they're going to have work too. And then we got to take care of their babies and their children, and they're getting food stamps. And then our people that need food stamps and they're not making that much, but they say, oh, they're making too much, they can't get food stamps. I mean, all of that really concerns me.
I've told this story before about when I was just starting out in broadcasting years ago. I was so dirt poor. I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I couldn't even afford a package of bologna. And if it weren't for my mom cooking extra meals on Thursday, because I got paid on Friday, I probably wouldn't have made it. I would have starved to death as a young man. She'd always put on extra food on Thursday, and I'd show, hey, Mom, Dad, how are you? And I'd show up and eat. And they knew full well what was going on. It is tough. And even though I qualified for food stamps, I never even ever thought one moment about applying for them. To me, food stamps were for poor people, and I just didn't feel like I was somebody who should take food stamps. And you're right. We're going to have to support these folks. And there doesn't seem to be anybody out there today who now has qualms, like a lot of us had back in the day, about taking food stamps and that kind of stuff. The illegal immigration system is broken, and it's going to be a problem for many, many years. And you can thank Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. for all of that. Thank you very much, Bonnie, and thank you for your calls. We'll do it again in about an hour, 51 minutes now, past the hour. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you'll know how much your healthcare will cost before it's delivered. Smart Care plans, just $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. Think about that. Wow. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they can offer family plans as well. Now, here's the thing. You take that Smart Care plan, and you marry it up with a high deductible insurance plan that you may already have, and you can save you and your family hundreds of dollars. Grace Point takes their time with each patient. They will see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. 615-599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity. like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the Phone Your FARB Friday. If you were calling in and you didn't get through because we ran out of time, but I got great news for you. We do this again at about 5:35, so you'll get another chance. In the next hour, I'll give you an update on the speaker's race, the fan favorite, Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports, or it's either that or the wide world of sports with Mac Morey. We got to figure that out. But that's all coming up. We'll talk about the Titans game all straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
WWT in Hendersonville, Nashville, 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 78 degrees, a sunny day on Music Row, and a sunny weekend ahead with highs in the mid-60s, lows in the mid-40s. Got that fall feel coming here. Weather forecast, latest traffic report, headed your way in 5 minutes. A better-than-expected jobs report out today. The Labor Department saying the United States economy added 336,000 jobs in September. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 3.8%. President Biden commenting on the report, crediting Bidenomics. And after his remarks, the president was asked again about his administration's announcement yesterday that up to 20 miles of new border barrier would be built in South Texas. Karen Travers has details.
President Biden was asked for specifics on what he did to try and shift the funding that Congress approved in 2019 for a border wall to other border security measures. The president reiterated what White House officials said Thursday, saying he had, quote, no choice.
You know, Congress passes legislation to build something, whether it's an aircraft carrier, a wall, or provide for a tax cut. I can't say I don't like it. I'm not going to do it if it hadn't been vetoed, if it's a law.
But he did say what he wanted Congress to do with that money instead.
Give me more border agents. Give me more technical capabilities to detect fentanyl and the like.
But the president did not say how he tried to make that happen, given Democrats controlled both the House and Senate for 2 years of his administration.
Right now in Tennessee, News 2 reporting a gun control bill has been filed for the upcoming General Assembly. Cookeville Republican State Rep Ryan Williams wants to make it so anyone who's committed a felony or misdemeanor of cruelty towards animals as a juvenile cannot buy guns legally until they're 25 years old.
My thought is how can we delay, not prevent them from being able to buy a weapon in the future, but how can we delay that so that there's actually a penalty to them for committing those acts, and so that they can reestablish themselves.
Williams says most active shooters are young adults whose brains are not fully developed. High school crime in Tennessee. Channel 4 reports a 14-year-old Stratford high school student has been arrested after allegedly carrying a stolen gun at a high school football game last night. An administrator thought the student had a gun and saw him walk behind the concession stands, so they followed him. And the admin found a loaded 9mm handgun that had already been reported stolen. That student now in custody at his residence. And in Colorado, a Denver cardiologist has entered a plea of not guilty to dozens of criminal sexual assault counts. Alex Stone.
The 51 charges against Dr. Stephen Matthews accuse a 35-year-old cardiologist of drugging and sexually assaulting 13 women he allegedly met on dating apps, including Tinder. He was first arrested in March, but more victims came forward, and he was rearrested in May. Victims say on their dates he would make them a drink, and then they would lose memory and black out. Matthews pleading not guilty. He's being held at the Denver jail. His trial is set to begin next March.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 8 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive on this beautiful October 6th, the Friday. Here in bucolic Watertown, 74 degrees. It's going to be a little cooler over the weekend, but you know what? It's October, and, what you need to do is go put your hoodie on or dress up like, Senator Fetterman and put on your hoodie. And, maybe a pair of sweats and make your way this weekend. You should come to bucolic Watertown. This is the weekend that you want to come to Watertown if you're going to come, because it's going to be fall-like and I don't know if you know this or not, but we do this twice a year here in Watertown, the mile-long yard sale, which is actually turned into about a 12-mile yard sale.
Wow. It's like those are the two things in Watertown that I love is the yard sale and then the drive-in movie theater you guys got out there.
Yeah, it's really great. And then what happens is they bring in food trucks and there's all kinds of stuff going on. And in the city of Watertown, there's about a mile-long road where people set up, their stuff and they sell it. So get you some cash in your pocket, go to the ATM, come out to the Watertown yard sale, and have a good time. And, I say it's a 12-mile yard sale because really, if you're coming, let's say, from Nashville out to Watertown, you go to the dog food plant and you turn right on 70, and you come out. Well, people sort of have, they're moochers, really. The people along 70, Highway 70, understand that you're coming out to the yard sale, and so they just set their stuff out in the yard. And so Highway 70, it gets all bogged up because people are pulling over for all these yard sales on the way out there. And what you need to do, I'm going to tell you, bypass all of that, go to Watertown where the good stuff is, and then, if you want to stop on the way back out, if you have a little money left, that's okay. But come on in. Start in Watertown, work your way back is what I would suggest.
Yeah, people don't realize that this is a pay-to-play kind of environment. We bought our stakes to be here. You can't just set up on the end, right?
That's right. You see, in Watertown, you have to pay to have a slot, and it goes to support, various things here in Watertown.
Yeah, it helps the community and stuff.
It's a community thing, right? But on the highway, those people, maybe they own the property or they found a vacant lot somewhere and they just set up their stuff. It's already setting up. I was driving downtown earlier today. Downtown. I'm using air quotes. And the food trucks are already coming in, and people are all getting ready, and people are putting their stuff in and putting it under tarps. I don't see rain in the forecast. It's supposed to be about 63 here tomorrow.
Wow.
In Watertown.
Yeah, I'm knocking on wood just in case.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to going to get my big Italian sausage, because there's a little truck down there that sells Italian sausages and kielbasa and all that kind of stuff.
That sounds great. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. It's going to be good. Come on out. We'd love to see you. And then drive by my house and look at my 11-foot skeleton. I'm so proud of that. It's something else. And then, by the way, this weekend, Cabana wife and I, we have friends who are very active in the Heritage Foundation, which, if you don't know the Heritage Foundation over in Franklin, they find old buildings and historic buildings, and they raise money to sort of save those buildings from being torn down, and they rehabilitate them and they turn them into lovely spaces that the public can use. If you've been to the Franklin Theater, that's the Heritage Foundation. They did that. And so they got their big ball going on. And so Cabana wife and I will be going. I have secured a tuxedo. I had a tuxedo, but it fit me when I was 60 pounds heavier. It doesn't so much fit me now. And so I had to go get a new tuxedo. I had to rent one. I don't know. If this one fits and I like it, it might get lost on the way back. It might just get lost. I don't know. We'll see. Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill, where they're trying to figure out, who's going to be the next Speaker of the House. I would say right now there are two candidates that are sort of emerged here. One is Jim Jordan. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. And the other is Steve Scalise, who's the majority leader, number 2 Republican in the House. I don't know. This may be the thing that helps Jordan ultimately win. According to many reports, well, it's actually from the former president himself. President Trump has endorsed Jim Jordan to be the House Speaker. Mr. Jordan, according to the Epoch Times, is considered to be the favorite by several House Republicans in the aftermath of the historic ouster of Kevin McCarthy. Former President Donald Trump has endorsed Jim Jordan to be the next Speaker. He's the head of the House Judiciary Committee, founder of the House Freedom Caucus, He's thought to be the favorite of several Republicans who spoke on background. He was the first to officially announce his intention to succeed Kevin McCarthy. Here's what the former President Trump said about him. Congressman Jim Jordan has been a star, all capitals, star, long before making his very successful journey to Washington, D.C., representing Ohio's 4th Congressional District, respected by all. He's now chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. As president, I have the honor of presenting Jim with our country's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So much is learned from sports, and Jim was a master. He was a wrestling expert, coach. While attending Graham High School, he won state championships all 4 years, a rarity. Compiled a 156-1 record as a wrestler. Wow. At the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Jim became a 2-time NCAA Division I wrestling champion. He has a master's degree in education from Ohio State and a law degree from Capital University. Says the former president, he's strong on crime, borders, and military vets, Second Amendment. His family outstanding. He'll be a great Speaker of the House, has my complete and total endorsement. Well, that's a heavyweight endorsement. I don't think there's any endorsement that's more heavyweight than that. Those comments made on Truth Social by the former president of the United States. Kevin McCarthy is said to be working quietly, according to Axios. I don't know if I believe this or not. Confidants of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy are advocating against Majority Leader Steve Scalise in the upcoming House Speaker's race, said 3 lawmakers familiar with discussions talking to Axios. Consultants and staff have been making calls advising members to hold off endorsing the Louisiana Republican. I think there's a difference between saying, I'm not going to make an endorsement and I'm going to keep my powder dry and let's see how things play out. And apparently what some people were saying, don't commit too early. Wait to see how this thing plays out a little bit. That's not bad advice, actually. I think that's what, if I were a member of Congress, and Lord knows that gives me the shivers just to think about that concept. But I mean, let me tell you, if you're a member of Congress, I always think it's a pretty good idea to play your cards close to your vest and to keep, as they say, keep your powder dry. Don't make a commitment that you then have to uncommit. You know, because really in Washington, once you make a commitment, you sort of have to stick with it, at least for one round of voting. And I think what McCarthy's confidants and his friends and his allies were saying is, wait a little bit to see how this plays out. By the way, there was a report today that McCarthy was going to leave Congress before the end of his term. And it turned out that that was not true. That was coming from Politico and was reported also by CNN. But then McCarthy picked up the phone and called Brett Baer over at Fox and said, not true, simply not true. I'm not planning on leaving. So if you heard that earlier report, the updated information is McCarthy says not so. He plans to stick around for a while. So look, here's the problem. Here's the mathematical problem that you have to solve this problem. So Scalise, he's well liked by a lot of people. You're majority leader. You don't get to be majority leader unless you have a lot of people who like you. And so there are people out there who like Scalise. He was the guy who got shot in that congressional baseball game practice. And now he's apparently suffering a little bit from cancer of the blood. And although he looks good and he says he's responding well to treatment, a lot of people are going to worry, well, do we really want to have to go through this whole process again? I think they're just, a little nervous about that. And I haven't really heard Scalise address it in any significant way. So if you got Scalise and you got Jim Jordan and you got Trump out there who has made a very heavy endorsement of Jim Jordan. Seems like Jordan's probably got the lead, but can he get 218 votes? That's the real question. So, I mean, that means you've got to get virtually every Republican in the House. If 4 people vote for Scalise, then it keeps Jordan from becoming the Speaker of the House. Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard to see. It's going to take a little while to find out who can actually get 218 votes. Who will Republicans in the House coalesce around in almost a unanimous way? How many rounds will that take? Well, here's the good news for you and me. We're not going to have to watch this on TV. You know, we saw that in January, and it was pretty ugly. They're going to do it behind closed doors. They're going to do it in conference, as they say. Get all the Republicans together. They'll keep voting behind closed doors and voting behind closed doors and voting behind closed doors until somebody gets 218 votes, and then they'll take it out there and they'll do it for real. So that starts on Tuesday. Members of Congress are going to be asked to return on Tuesday, and then I think the first conference meeting will be Wednesday. I think that's the way it's planned right now. Could change. And they'll get behind closed doors. And, you know, there'll be a lot of reporters camped out in front, and, you know, people will leak a little bit about what happened. But it's sort of like waiting on the Pope until there's white smoke from the conference. We're not going to know who the next speaker is. And they won't go to the floor until they are certain they have the votes and that everybody's on the same page. Again, you need 218 votes. You got 222 members of the House who are Republicans. So you got to get virtually all of them. There will be a movement to get rid of that rule, that vacate the chair rule. It looks like there's a feeling that was a pretty stupid idea, which I thought it was back in January, but you know, apparently they're willing to consider that now. And there's a story here. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but that Trump might try to go to Capitol Hill to meet with Republicans behind closed doors next week. We'll see how that goes. 21 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
Some news with the U.S. Army as they're ordering more than $1 billion worth of, we'll tell you at 5:30, crime in Tennessee and a possible gun control bill in Tennessee. That and more on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's time for Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. Here is the host of your program. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. It's Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, hello.
We're
Happy
so
Friday.
glad that you made it to Friday, Mac Maury.
Me too.
Well, as is tradition, on Fridays, we look ahead at and see what those two-tone blue Titans are going to be doing. They're up against the Colts this weekend. Game kicks off on 12 o'clock, straight up noon. Is that right? Is that the correct time? I believe that's correct.
Yep, straight up noon at Indianapolis. So this will be an away game. This is the first divisional game. They'll play each divisional opponent 2 times. So 6 full divisional games ahead this season. So and that's huge. You know, each team right now in the AFC South is tied at a 2-2 record. So this could kind of break up that lock between all 4 teams with the first divisional game going up for the Titans. You know, coming off a big win, Brian. We talked about it on Monday. Came away with a huge win against the Cincinnati Bengals at Nissan Stadium, 27-3, and saw a lot of things go right there, right? Ryan Tannehill had a little bit more time in the pocket to throw the ball to those wide receivers. Those wide receivers were a little bit more open than they were in the past. And you saw Tim Kelly, the offensive coordinator, kind of just start to get a little bit more creative and innovative with what he was doing with the pieces that he, attains on the Tennessee Titans roster. And most importantly, Brian, King Henry got going over 100 yards on the ground, ran a touchdown, threw a touchdown.
I know. That was so cool.
Oh, that was so much fun. But that's part of that creativity that we're talking about, right? Thinking outside the box, because the Titans for so long have had their formula that has worked, obviously, in the past. But defenses have gone accustomed to saying, okay, we're going to stop Derrick Henry, we're going to stack the box, and we're going to bet you to throw on us. We're going to dare you to try and pass that ball. And they proved on Sunday that they have the ability to do that. So now we'll see if this can be more than just a blip of success and start some consistency here this Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts, who have been a fun team to watch, Brian. They've got one of the top picks in the NFL draft at quarterback this year. And just as far as Combine is concerned, the NFL Combine, and looking at athletic charts, their quarterback, Anthony Richardson, is the most athletic quarterback maybe to ever enter the league. 6'4", 245 pounds, runs a 4.4. He can toss the ball 65 yards. He'll lower his shoulder like a running back. He doesn't look like a quarterback on the field, but he's got all the skills and the ability. But he's raw. You know, he's a rookie. He's younger. So maybe this Tennessee Titans defense can take advantage of that, get in his face a little bit, and they want to contain those edges because, again, he's athletic, he's fast, and he'll slipper. He's very slippery. He'll get to the outside and be running for a first down before you know it. So if they can contain him, I like their chances this weekend, Brian. This would be a really fun game, and again, to build that momentum and some consistency.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of at the point where, I mean, I observed last week, and I think it's accurate. That since I've been in Nashville, I've noticed that the Titans start slow. They always start slow, and then 2 or 3 games in, all of a sudden they get it together. They put the pieces together, and then they go on a run. And so I'm hoping that that they've turned that corner, like Derrick Henry coming around on the on the right side, and now they're just gonna put it in afterburner and all the way in and win a whole series of games. I hope that's the case because, but it every year it seems like we start out slow and then we hit our stride. I'm hoping we've hit our stride.
I agree. And, it's almost like, Brian, the Titans want that underdog mentality. You've counted us out now. Oh, people are talking about us in a negative way. Well, now we're going to respond and answer the bell. And they've done that so far. Again, 2-2. This is a huge game, first divisional game. And this will kind of start they'll have 2 away games in a row. Really, they play the Ravens next week, and it's counted as a home game, but they're going to be in London. They're going to be across the pond facing Baltimore in London. Exactly. So you got
Well, I have a feeling you might be gone next weekend. Are you going to go to? No, I would love to go to the game in London.
That'd be
fun.
awesome. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
That'd be
wouldn't it?
great.
Yeah. Well, anyway, one way or the other, a hopeful, good outcome for the two-tone blue. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I've got a Titans win here, Brian. Let's go.
Well, no. I need a prediction,
You're
a
right.
hard
I know.
prediction. I'm not going to let you scoot off without giving us numbers.
27-17. Titans win.
Okay. I hope you're right.
Me too. Let's go.
All right, it's 30 minutes now past the hour. Mac Morey takes off his sport hat and put on his news hat because it's time for the news on Super Talk.
.530 Mac Morey with your top stories. Mostly sunny right now in Middle Tennessee. A beautiful day, and that's just getting ready for a beautiful weekend. Clear skies and that fall weather coming through. A little bit cooler temperatures, mid-40s and the low, high 60s to mid-60s as the high. We got a full weather forecast. That latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Right now, 76 degrees. The U.S. Army ordering more than $1 billion worth of high-caliber artillery rounds. Andy Field explains why.
After the U.S. committed more than 2 million rounds of 155-millimeter artillery to Ukraine, the Pentagon worried about having enough for American troops. So the Army awarded a $1.5 million contract to speed up making them. They are powerful 2-foot-long, 100-pound shells used in howitzers that can hit a target up to 20 miles away.
Crime in Tennessee. News 2 says that Metro Police K-9 assisted in catching an 18-year-old and putting him into custody. It was last night in the Edge Hill area when a Chevy Malibu was reported stolen. Officers then spotted this Malibu. They tried to pull it over. That's when the teen attempted to run away. The K-9 was able to track him down. That teenager currently charged with evading arrest. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Phone your FARB is coming up here next, and so you get a head start if you want to get on the line now at 615-737-9986. In the meantime, have you heard about lab-grown diamonds? Well, here's a word of advice. Don't buy a lab-grown diamond until you talk to my friends at Genesis Diamonds. Genesis will reveal the secrets behind this new product and make sure that you're protected if you decide to buy one. Genesis has non-commissioned experts who will teach you the difference between a natural diamond and a lab-grown diamond so you can make a smart and informed decision. One important fact you will learn is how some jewelers are grossly overcharging for lab-grown stones. There are some insane markups going on, and you need to be careful. For example, at some stores, they are selling a 4-carat round lab-grown diamond stud earrings at around $9,000 a pop. But at Genesis Diamonds, you get them for about half that price with better quality diamonds. I said half the price. You see, you need to be informed. You need to get a second opinion. You need to be a careful and informed consumer. And that's what Genesis promises. They are transparent. They will teach you what you need to know about the smart buy. And just like they have always done, they will continue to inform you as an informed consumer. Genesis Diamonds, your trusted advisor when it comes to the complex world of diamonds. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs. They are the official jeweler of the Tennessee Titans. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, and is always the case on Fridays, we do this little thing that it's a fan favorite. It's your chance to express yourself, a little thing we call Phone Your FARB Friday. (615-737-9986) is the number. This is your opportunity to get on and our 100,000-watt soapbox and tell people what you're thinking about, what you're angry about, what has got you cheesed today. And listen, maybe you have a bee in your bonnet, maybe you have a burr in your saddle, maybe you have a bug in a place where I hope you never have a bug. Maybe you heard Hillary say this.
You know, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
Yeah, talking about people who support Trump. Or maybe you heard the president say this.
I think they know they're better off financially than they were before. It's a fact.
Maybe you have a disagreement with some of that. 615-737-9986. Honestly, this is my favorite part of the week, and we got a lot of open lines today. Yeah, there's some people coming in there. Hold on. And by the way, if you ring and ring and ring and we haven't gotten to you yet, call right back. 615-737-9986. You know, really, honestly, so much of the time what we do here is that we spend time talking about a certain topic. I'll ask you for your opinion about a certain topic, and then, it's a directed conversation. But here, anything goes. Anything goes. 615-737-9986. The phone lines they're coming in like crazy. And listen, if you'd get dropped, just get back on and call again. We'd love to hear from you. It takes a little while, for us to sort of get through all of these calls. and you can help us in that regard, is if you call in, tell us quickly what's on your mind. Just give us the topic, and then we'll move on. 615-737-9986. Okay, are we ready to go with number one now? Okay, Larry in Clarksville. You're on with Brian on the drive. Hello, Larry.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. Hope you have
bet.
a wonderful weekend. My question for you, and I really, truly appreciate your swamp understanding for all the years you've done there.
Yeah.
What are the chances that this whole speakership thing backfires and Hakeem Jeffries becomes the new speaker?
Well, I think that they've got a process in place, Larry, where that probably, I mean, I never say never because I've seen crazy things happen, but I don't think that's likely. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to come back next week, and they're going to get behind closed doors, and they're going to have what they call a conference. And in the conference, they will run these numbers. They'll say, okay, who do you nominate? And they'll do it for, behind the closed doors until they get somebody who can get 218 votes. Now, it's a heavy lift. They may be in that conference for 2 or 3, 4 days. I don't know how long it's going to take them. But when they finally come to terms with who's going to be the speaker, the person that can get 218 votes, then they'll take it to the floor of the House, and they should have, if everybody votes on the floor like they voted in conference, then it should be over very quickly once they go to the floor. I don't think the Democrats are going to prevail here. But again, we've seen some crazy things, but it doesn't seem likely. And Larry, thank you so much for the nice words, and thank you so much for listening. Let's go to Lawrence down in Murfreesboro. Lawrence, how are you? What's on your mind today?
I'm doing fine. I appreciate your show. I just want to say if the Republican Party don't get together as a team and quit letting one person lead them around by the nose like them 8, old Joe Biden will be reelected president again because the Republican Party can't get together as a team. That's why the Democrats are controlling everything. And
Well,
they ain't
you know
got
what?
enough.
There used to be
Go
a
ahead.
saying, and I think it was I can't think of the guy's name. Will Rogers. Will Rogers, who was a political commentator in his day. He was amazing. He was a very funny guy, and he said, "I'm not a member of any organized political party. I'm a Democrat." And it used to be said of Democrats that they were not very organized. Well, I think you could say that today. I'm not a member of I'm not a member of an organized political party. I'm a Republican. Because it seems like we're the ones squabbling with ourselves. The Democrats are very united. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Lawrence. I think we've got to get, through this, and we've got to get on the same page. And we need real leadership to take us forward, because right now there are huge rifts within this party. Thank you for the call, Lawrence. Appreciate it. Heather in Nashville. Heather, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Heather?
Hello. Well, I was hearing on the last hour about RFK, and somebody suggested maybe him as the vice presidential nominee, but you wouldn't want to set him up, for a presidential run. But he could certainly be maybe put on the cabinet in health or education. He's got a huge
Heather,
amount of knowledge.
help me out here. What is it you like about RFK?
Well, I read his book. It was quite a challenge, The Real Anthony Fauci, and there was just so much information in it, regarding the medical world and pharmacy and what a game it is and what a sham it is. I think he could make a lot of improvements there. But I wouldn't vote for him as president, but I've actually got several liberal friends that love him, so that would be taking away from Biden.
Well,
so I think
that's my
a good
hope,
thing.
is that he's going to run now as an independent, he says. He's not going to run as a Democrat. He's going to make that announcement, I think, next week. And I think the question is, who does he pull from most? I think there are some Republicans who like him a lot, but I don't think they like him more than they like Trump. So I don't think that changes.
I wouldn't change my vote. And then I also wanted to comment about Mark Levin's new book, Democrat Party Hates America. There's so much great information in his book, so much history and so much documentation. But the title, he's just preaching to the choir with his title. He's not going to get anybody in the Democratic Party to read or listen or learn that history because of the title. I've got people I want to share some of this information with, but if I send them anything, I'm going to have to figure out how to, not put the title.
Just, don't attribute it. I mean, I'm sure Mark would be fine with this. Don't attribute it. Just tell them, here's some statistics for you. Here's some news. Here's some facts. Facts are stubborn things. But you don't have to tell them where you got it. All right, listen, Heather, I got to move on. Got a lot of call. I'm sorry, Heather. I did not mean to cut you off. David in Manchester. David, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, David?
Hi, Brian. I'm just calling to support for Matt Gaetz. I think he's done a great thing because that whole idea of the speaker taking that position on certain terms and then he didn't follow through with those. But I wanted to say that I don't think it's any coincidence that the border, the Mayorkas suddenly started to enforce the law at the border just a matter of days after the speakership changed. I think that's a result.
You think it's because of the speakership battle that he's got? I think it's really driven, my personal opinion, and you may be right, but I think my personal opinion is it's being driven by the fact that now the mayors of these blue cities like Chicago and New York and L.A. are just really sending it up the chain to Biden and telling him, we've got a real problem on our hands. And look, if the voters in Chicago get irritated enough about the thing that's happening in New York City, who knows what kind of landslide Republicans might be in for. And I think they looked at that and said, you know what, we had a good run. We got a lot of them in here, but now we need to think about the election. And so I think we're going to have to start tightening up the border just a little bit. I think that's what they decided. I don't think they wanted to do it, but I think they feel like that they're now endangering their ability to get reelected, a lot of them, and they feel like they have to do something about it, not that they want to do something about it.
Thanks for taking the call. I appreciate it.
David, thank you. Thank you for listening. Greatly appreciate it. Jonathan in Centerville, you're on with Brian on the drive. What's up, Jonathan?
Hi. I'm just thinking today, I've been listening to you guys' show for a while now, and, it's always great to listen to you guys talk about different topics. What's on my mind today is you were just talking about the border situation and how this Biden, who's been kind of fighting back against building a border wall, is now going to do it with a appropriation from 2019. It's like the Twilight Zone. It's like, I can't believe this is really happening. It's unthinkable.
Yeah, and about 20 miles of it. Yeah, and what I'm reading is that 20 miles is apparently the worst place for the cartels. They operate out of there in northern Mexico. That's where they operate out of. So that's why I think they decided to choose that one. If they have to do it, at least, maybe they can contain the really bad people who are coming across. I think they're very concerned about that, and they should be. They haven't been concerned up to now, but I mean, think about how many bad people are coming across with the help of the cartels that are no contact at all with law enforcement. That's what I think is driving them. Yeah.
I just think it's crazy that they pretended like it wasn't a problem for 4 years, and now they want to do something about it.
I know. As well, if enough people complain, government will react. Thank you so much, Jonathan. How about Dawn in Bellevue? Don, you're on with Brian on the drive.
Hi, Brian. I wanted to call in. First of all, I agree with you on the mayors putting pressure on, and that's the reason it's happening. I wanted to call in, and I'm hoping that somewhere somebody will come up with a website. I donate money to the Republican Party, not a lot, but I can donate to a site where we can support primary people against those 8 people who voted against McCarthy and who caused this whole mess. And one of them is right here in Tennessee. And I guarantee you, if somebody runs against Tim Burchett, they're going to get some money from me. And I wish I could just donate to a big fund that could fund primary opposition to all.
Well, I think you're going to have to wait and see who gets primaried, and I think there may be some people who get primaried out of the vacate 8. I really do, but it's a little early to know whether or not anybody's going to take them on. But we'll keep an eye on it. It is. I guarantee you that did not sit well with a lot of people in the Republican Party. Now, on the other hand is a lot of people within the sound of my voice really love what Matt Gaetz did. I'm not among them, but a lot of people did. Listen, thank you so much for your calls. 2 great rounds here of Phone Your FARB Friday. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Listen, if you're thinking about adding gold or silver to your portfolio, let me tell you about my friends over at Nashville Gold and Coin. If you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand so you can touch it, gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, this is the place that I do business, and it's a place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service, and really, I think the most important thing you get is a real precious metals education. They'll answer your questions. They'll give you good advice, I think. They also specialize in the buying and selling and appraising of coins. If you have any idea how much those coins you have laying around might be worth, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I had a few, I brought them in. It was about $1,650 worth of coins that I didn't think had near that kind of value. Whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or you want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth today, schedule a one-on-one consultation. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, Call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
An update on that new border wall, some crime in Tennessee, child neglect, plus some Ukraine news over in the White House. That and more, 6 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Man, I'm telling you what, coming up in the next hour, I've got some fascinating stories. When you have a lot of breaking news like we did this week, you have to put that kind of stuff aside. But I've got enough to fill up a whole hour. Great discussion pieces and a story about how long humans have been in North America that is shattering the previous beliefs. You're going to love the next hour. Some really fascinating stuff right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 6 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 74 degrees, a sunny day on Music Row. More ahead, clear skies, temperatures high in the mid-70s, low in the 40s. Got that fall feel coming back. And time for some real football, too. Traffic, latest forecast coming together, 5 minutes. A better than expected jobs report out today. The Labor Department saying the United States economy added 336,000 jobs in September. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 3.8%. And President Biden commenting on the report, crediting Bidenomics. And after his remarks, the president was asked again about his administration's announcement yesterday that up to 20 miles of new border barrier would be built in South Texas. Karen Travers brings us some details.
President Biden was asked for specifics on what he did to try and shift the funding that Congress approved in 2019 for a border wall to other border security measures. The president reiterated what White House officials said Thursday, saying he had, quote, no choice.
You know, Congress passes legislation to build something, whether it's an aircraft carrier, a wall, or provide for a tax cut. I can't say I don't like it. I'm not going to do it if it hadn't been vetoed, if it's a law.
But he did say what he wanted Congress to do with that money instead.
Give me more border agents. Give me more technical capabilities to detect fentanyl and the like.
But the president did not say how he tried to make that happen, given Democrats controlled both the House and Senate for 2 years of his administration.
Right now in the volunteer state, a mother and her boyfriend have been charged with child neglect after a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old were left at home alone for hours. Police were notified that a toddler was home alone at the Haynes Gardens apartment when a neighbor spotted them. Once they arrived and knocked, the toddler opened the door. DCS says both had soiled diapers, dirty clothes on, and what was a dirty-looking apartment. The mother and boyfriend arrived separately with different contradicting stories about when they left and how long the children were alone. DCS took those children to stay with a family member. And over in the nation's capital, 2 top congressional Republicans asking the White House to provide more details about its plan for victory in Ukraine. The request comes as concerns grow about future United States funding to support Ukraine's fight against Russia. Justin Finch with more from Washington.
In a letter to the Biden administration, House Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Michael McCaul and Senate Foreign Affairs Committee Ranking Member James Risch press for more information about the U.S. strategy in Ukraine. The members say they're strong Ukraine supporters, but say the White House has not laid out how continued U.S. aid will lead to Ukraine's victory over Russia after more than a year of war. The letter includes a list of questions and gives the administration until November 6th to respond.
And right now in Middle Tennessee, Clarksville police asking for help in identifying an armed man who robbed a Dollar General last night. Officials say the man's around 6'1", 185 to 200 pounds. They're asking if you live near Tracy Lane in around that area to check any security cameras that you may see any suspicious happened from 9 to 9:30. That's the latest news. Traffic weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good evening, everyone. 8 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on this really beautiful fall evening, October 6th, the Friday. I mean, it's still 72 pleasant degrees here in bucolic Watertown, and we are getting ready for the big mile-long yard sale. I can't wait to walk up and down and find somebody's junk that I just can't live without. When we do this show, it is driven a lot by breaking news, and there's been an awful lot of it this week, especially with what was going on in the House of Representatives. And so, I find these stories that I think are just fascinating, and I often just don't have time to get to them, so I save them. And I like to sort of in the last hour on Friday, if we have some time, go through some of this stuff. I mean, this is not political news. This is just stuff that I think is interesting, and I think you'll find it interesting too. As we say, we're news talk, and we talk about things that are political a lot of the time, but sometimes we just talk about things that are sort of fascinating. And I've got several of those. This one is really interesting to me, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Footprints that were found in an ancient lake bed. It's now dry, but at one time it was an ancient lake in New Mexico. Now these footprints are from humans, and it looks just like your footprint and my footprint. It could have been us out there in mud, but I mean these mud hardened, and then over years they became fossilized, and then they were able to study them and find certain, like they could pull seeds, ancient seeds, out of these footprints and other things that they found in the mud that had fossilized, and then they could carbon date it with using that elaborate carbon dating process. And they found this some time ago, but there were some questions about how the carbon dating was done, so a lot of people didn't like the results. But now they have come back with a sort of more refined data, and now it appears that that they are having to change the number on how long humans have been on the North American continent. I mean, the thought was that, well, it was about 15,000 years ago that humans walked across the land bridge, the Bering Land Bridge, from Europe across into Alaska, then down through what is now Canada, and then down into the United States and into South America. And they believe that's how mankind traveled, and that mankind arrived in North America somewhere around 15,000 years ago was the traditional, conventional thinking. But now they're saying that has been pushed back dramatically. They say that it probably was 21 to 23,000 years ago that mankind first made an appearance that we can confirm with carbon dating. So it is in the world of archaeology, people are having a very vigorous debate about this. I think they're probably right. In about 15,000 years ago, there were people known as the Clovis people. I mean, they were Indians, as what we would call indigenous people now, but they were in that particular area. I have a story that that makes me fascinated by this topic. When I was a young man, just starting out in radio news in my hometown of Odessa, there was a story, I remember reading it in the San Angelo Standard-Times, about a discovery. A guy who was a surveyor over in Pecos, Texas, had found a cave. I mean, a cave had been there forever, but I don't know. He discovered it while surveying, and out of curiosity, he went down inside the cave, and he found all of these artifacts, all these amazing American native artifacts. I mean, there were baskets, there were shoes, there were bodies, there were graves, all inside this cave. And so he just, not really knowing what he should do, he just picked them up all and put them in his pickup truck, took them home, went out to the hardware store and bought a big plastic trash can, and just put them in the plastic trash can and kept it in his garage. And people would come over and say, hey, show me what you found in the cave. And he would pull it out and show it to anybody. Well, the story got written up. And then all of a sudden I thought, well, I've got to go over there and meet this guy. And so I went over and I met him and I interviewed him. And I said, would you take me out to show me where the cave is? I mean, I was a radio guy. I didn't really need pictures, but I wanted to go. And so he took me out there, and another reporter went along with us. And we went out there and went to the cave. And I went into the cave, and I saw some of the things that were still there, and the writings that were on the wall and the whole 9 yard. And then I thought, well, I think I was, at least in modern times, about the third or fourth person to go in that cave. And so I came back, and then they started then trying to look up everybody who had been inside that cave because they were afraid they were going to catch some kind of cave disease. So they called me up. You were in that cave? I said, yeah, I was in that cave. And they said, well, you need to be looking out for this. And I never had any of the symptoms, never had any problems. So, I guess I dodged a bullet there, but they were really worried about that. Then the Texas, University of Texas sent their archaeologists down there, and then the state made it a controlled site. And the surveyor actually eventually handed all of his artifacts over to the University of Texas so that they could be studied and put on display. But that was, fascinating to me that people had lived in this cave some 15,000 years ago. Now they're telling us that people probably lived in that area maybe 23,000 years ago. By the way, where is this? If you know anything about New Mexico, this is near the White Sands Missile Range, the White Sands National Park. And you can actually see there, if you go online, foxnews.com has a story about it. They have found, they'll show you pictures of those fossilized footprints. It's really quite something. So there you go. Mankind has been in North America longer than earlier thought. I think that's interesting. Here's a story, and I want you to have a conversation about this. If you go to church this weekend, I want to know what you think about it. Because I went to a church one time, and, as is often the case, you go and you can get a cup of coffee while you're waiting on church to start. And I started to get rid of my coffee as church was starting, and we were going to go in and sit down. And somebody said, no, you can bring the coffee in. I said, you can bring the coffee into the church? You can bring it into the sanctuary? Well, I've never heard of such a thing. I grew up in a Baptist church that's rather conservative. I mean, in my Baptist church where I grew up, as a kid, you would put on a coat and tie when you went to church. Nobody does that anymore. I mean, that ship has sailed. Now people go in their jeans, and they go in their shorts and whatever. Then nobody dresses up to go to church anymore. But we would never think about taking food into the sanctuary. Why, Brother Bob would have had a heart attack.
I still am hesitant when I do it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but now apparently it's a very common thing. Go by, get a donut, and then take your coffee and sit down, and you can drink your coffee. Honestly, you don't even need to take a Bible to church anymore. I mean, I do, but a lot of people don't. I mean, because it's all on the big screen.
That or even digital on people's phones or like tablets or something.
Absolutely. So, a lot of people are doing that, and I embrace that. I don't have any problem with the technology. I still can't go to church without dressing up at least a little. I just can't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned and my thinking on that. But a Minnesota pastor has put a post up, and it was like, this is what my pastor used to do if he had a disagreement with something that was going on in the church and he didn't really want to wail on people or call people out by name. He would talk about the topic, and then he would say the following words after he sort of expressed his opinion about it. He'd say, a word to the wise should be sufficient. And that was sort of his way of saying, you've heard how I feel about this, and I would really appreciate it if you would sort of, get in line on this particular issue. After all, I'm your pastor, and I'm supposed to be leading you. A word to the wise should be sufficient. And so, sometimes it was about how people dressed, and sometimes it was about, things that were going on in the church. Sometimes it was about the complaints about the temperature of the sanctuary and people wanting to fight over the thermostat. Whatever it was, he would say a word to the wise should be sufficient. Well, this pastor, John Piper in Minnesota, basically has done the same thing, except he's done it on social media. Can we reassess whether Sunday coffee sipping in the sanctuary fits? He's a theologian, a pastor, and a chancellor of Bethlehem College and Seminary in Minneapolis. Then he added a Bible verse, Hebrews 12:28, which states, "Let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe." And about 1,000 people responded. Some users appearing shocked at the very idea of bringing coffee into a church service, and because they don't do it everywhere, and others who didn't seem fazed in the least. What wrote one person, I think we have bigger fish to fry, John. Personally, I'm in awe that God puts up with me at all, Sunday through Saturday. But, you know, it's a valid question. Have we gotten too casual about the way we worship? I mean, you know, do we need to maybe perhaps think that, you know, it's not like going to a movie where you take in your drinks and your popcorn. I mean, it really is a time where you're supposed to be in reverence and you're supposed to be worshiping God. Do you need coffee to do that? Well, some people would say yes. I like the idea, quite frankly. I've been to churches where this is allowed, and I didn't think it distracted from me, and it helped me stay awake. And, you know, usually church services, you know, that's can be a challenge sometimes. I would say, I would say to the pastor, if you want us not to have coffee in the sanctuary, then you need to be more interesting. I don't know. So listen, I want you to, when you go to church this Sunday, I want you to think about it. I mean, in the Catholic Church, I don't think they do this at all, or not very much, because there's actually written into canon law, which I think the Catholics observe. I'm not real knowledgeable about the Catholic faith, but I think that's correct. That you're supposed to actually fast from food and beverage other than water for at least 1 hour prior to reception of communion. Now, if you're a church where you don't go communion all the time, I guess that's okay. But a Catholic priest said it for a long time. This fast was from midnight. Break fast is when you broke the fast. I mean, that's where the word came from. You would fast overnight. In recent times, this was reduced to 3 hours and now 1 hour prior to receiving communion. In practice, this means Catholics who will be receiving communion should not eat or drink about 20 minutes prior to the start of Mass. So that's not an onerous burden, but one way or the other. I don't know. I would love to know. We'll open up the phones maybe next week and have a conversation about, have we gotten too, I think the bigger question, have we gotten too casual about the way we practice our faith? And maybe that's what it should be. Maybe we got too pious and too uptight about the way we had to practice our faith. It'd be a great conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's interesting on that topic as well, because a lot of people look at it as, with the more casual we are, it's a kind of a come as you are kind of situation. Because if everybody sees,
you're inviting to all people.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So anybody of any upbringing or anything like that can come into the church, and you don't have to have a suit and tie every time you come into church and feel out of place, I guess.
I would never want somebody to say I couldn't come to church because I didn't have a tie.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want that. Never want that. But I just think that there's something about showing up in your shorts and flip-flops, and I've seen that.
I have as well, yeah.
I mean, I like flip-flops as much as the next guy. Everybody knows that. I love flip-flops. I wear them. I've got them on right now, as a matter of fact. But I would never think about wearing them to church. About anywhere else I'd wear them, but not at church. All right, it's 21 minutes now past the hour. More in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7. Let me talk to you about the folks over at USS. 25,000 satisfied customers. They've been doing this for a while. If you have foundation or waterproof issues, this is the team you want. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Joshua. This is something that a customer wrote in. Recently, our foundation was repaired by the team at USS, and it was an exceptional experience. They finished ahead of schedule, kept us informed every step of the way, and restored everything perfectly, even after digging deep into our lawn and tearing out concrete. Their professionalism and courtesy stood out, working seamlessly around other vendors at our house, and explained all the changes up front. Communication was top-notch and friendly, making the process smooth. What impressed us was the cleanliness. They contained the mess and left the site spotless. We got multiple quotes, and USS was not only competitive but honest without the unnecessary add-ons we saw from others. I highly recommend USS. That comes from Joshua, who used USS in Nashville. I got a whole page. I got page after page of people who've had similar experiences. So listen, if you need to work on just call them up at 615-488-7855. They'll come out to your house. They'll assess your situation. They'll give you their best advice. And then if you decide to go forward, you won't pay a penny until the job is done and you're satisfied. They guarantee their best. Just call USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com. Again, the number 615-488-7855. You know, I say that I don't believe in when I was growing up and bringing food into the church, but you know, one of the things that I did, me and this guy, this buddy of mine, we went to church together. His name Rick Romine. Rick Romine and I, we went up and we ran the sound for church services. That was sort of our thing. We would go up to the sound booth up in the rafters, and then and we were in a little room and we had our little console and we ran the sound. But because nobody was around, we would bring in donuts. Rick and I could polish off a dozen donuts by ourselves, man. I'm telling you.
Just snacking.
Whew. Yeah. And good old, they were called daylight donuts. Or then the best donuts were Southern-made donuts. That's my hometown.
I would say at my church, they give out Krispy Kreme and Shipley's.
Yeah. Not even close.
Nope.
Someday, I want to have a conversation with the audience about the best place to get donuts. Because for me, there's one place that in my hometown that has never been surpassed. And that was a place called Southern Made Donuts in Odessa. And, oh, God, they were so good. They would come out hot. And, I mean, and the icing was just great. Oh, I could just eat a box of them. In fact, every time I go home, one of the first things I do is go to the Southern Maid, back home to my hometown. I went to Southern Maid to get a box of donuts. Last time I went, I didn't know this, but apparently for years, they took 2 weeks off and would go on vacation and just shut the whole store down.
Oh, no.
And I got there, and they were shut down. That's all I had I was just salivating. I could not wait to get down there to
Just
Southern Made
ready.
Donuts and get me a box of them donuts and just wail away on them. And they were closed for 2 weeks.
Man.
That's, boy,
Just teasing you. Means you got to go back, right?
I was bummed out. I really was. We got this questionnaire, all the talent, and I use that term loosely, at Super Talk, got this questionnaire. And you're supposed to answer these questions, and they're going to take the answers and turn them into sort of meet Brian Wilson. And it's a question and answer kind of thing. And it asked, I think about question number 7. What are you passionate about personally? Now, they asked the question professionally, and what are you passionate about personally? And I said, donuts.
Can't blame you at all. That's a great.
Well, you know that in my family, I'm known as Uncle Donut. Because when I go visit all my nieces and nephews, I always bring donuts. So I'm not Uncle Brian, I'm Uncle Donut.
That's funny.
And then Cabana Wife, they were trying to figure out, well, she's there too, so what should we call her? But they thought she was a lot more classy than I was, so they called her Auntie Croissant.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like they keep it in the baked goods little area there.
That's right. I'm passionate about donuts. When we come back, some more of these stories that I've been holding on to for the week and a health warning for people who may be going through a very popular program designed to help you lose weight. It's all straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN 630 now. Let me tell you, if I could, about DT McCall's. They've been around for more than 100 years in Middle Tennessee. And, really, honestly, a company cannot last that long and be successful without having a reputation for treating people right. And I think if you go to DT McCall's, you'll find that they will treat you right. Why shop DT McCall's? Well, a huge selection of appliances, furnitures, mowers, gun safes, anything that you might need for your house. You're going to find it at DT McCall's. Cabana wife and I, a lot of the things in our house, we got them at DT McCall's. And you know what was great about it is because we have, those couple conversations about, well, I like this, well, I like that. Well, I don't like that, but you can't decide on what you want. Well, when you have a lot of things to look at, it's really easy to find something that you both like. We instantly did that with regard to our couch. Walked in within a matter of moment. We came to agreement on what we were going to do because there was a lot of things to look at. And one of the things I love about them is that they do whatever they can, whenever possible, to sell products that are made and manufactured in Middle Tennessee. There's a lot to be said for that, keeping the dollars local. So listen, if you need something for your house, just go to their website and learn about their 5 convenient locations. It's dtmccalls.com. It's 37 minutes now past the hour, the last little bit here of our Friday show before we hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one. He'll pick it up at after the news at 7 o'clock. Hey, listen, I've been sort of in this last hour just going through some stories that, we do a lot of hard news and we do a lot of political news and we ask you your opinion about the issues of the day. But there's, every once in a while I come across these stories. I think, we really should talk about this. I'd like to know what people think about it. And maybe we'll open up some of these for conversation next week at some point. But I love the question about, okay, is it good or is it not good to have coffee in church? In church, not just at church, but in church and the actual sanctuary. And, I like it. But are we getting too casual about the way we go to our worship services? I don't know. That's sort of the bigger question. Maybe we'll ask that question. Talk about it over the weekend with your family. Talk it over at church with your friends and see what they say. And then maybe we'll open it up on Monday and have a conversation about it. Here's another one of these stories that I don't know which side of this I'm on. I mean, as a freedom-loving individual, and somebody who has a strong streak of libertarianism that runs through me, I believe government that governs best is that which governs least. You know, the old saying. And so I don't really like government getting in my business. But on the other hand, there's one thing that I hate with a passion, and I hate it so badly, and it's people who smoke cigarettes. I mean, if you smoke cigarettes, I mean, I wouldn't hate you as an individual, but I would hate your habit.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you.
And the reason this is as a young man, some people ask, they go to the doctor, you smoke. I've never smoked. Not even one cigarette, not even one cigar, not even one reefer, nothing. It just repulses me very strongly. And so, and that makes me, a Pollyanna, then so be it. But when I was a kid, my mom and dad both smoked. Now, they eventually gave up the habit, and I was so glad that they did. But when I was a young man, you'd be in the back seat, you'd be going somewhere, mom and dad up front, they're just smoking away, and you're just in the back seat, unable to breathe. And I hated it. And you can only say that so many times to my dad, Dad, I can't breathe. And he would crack his window. Well, that didn't do any good. The little triangular window that they used to have on cars, that didn't do any good. And so I don't know, it was just something that I came to resent. When I would get out of the car, I would smell like, an ashtray, and I hated it. Sometimes my mom and dad would take me to church, and then I would get out, and I'd been in the car with them, and I'd get to church, and say, are you smoking? I said, no, I'm not smoking. Well, you smell like you've been smoking. Well, that's because my mom and dad smoked. They gave it up. I hated it. I hated it with a passion. And I still to this day, I can't believe that we had a time and a place when it wasn't that long ago, where you'd get on an airplane and people could smoke. You go into any public building and people could smoke. Now it's about the only place you could smoke, in a public place. In Nashville, there's still some, I think, bars and restaurants where smoking is allowed. It's generally banned most everywhere. So, it's not good for you. We can all agree on that. Nobody in the world will look you straight in the eye and try to make the argument that smoking is good for you, right? No, nobody does that anymore. So in the UK, they have come up with a plan to phase out smoking altogether. The government says that if you say, okay, well, this year, you have to be 18 years old to buy cigarettes. Next year, it'll be 19 years old. Year after that, it'll be 20. And then the idea is that as you get older and older and older, you'd have to be 53 to buy cigarettes, and then 63 to buy cigarettes. And at some point, nobody will be smoking anymore because you can't buy them. Now, I don't know if that's practically, if it really works that way, but that's the idea. And they're going to phase it out slowly, starting with 18 this year, and then adding a year every year until people get to the point where nobody is smoking anymore. And by the way, this has been done in New Zealand. A report explaining the system has already implemented in New Zealand, which is becoming known for its draconian health interventions. The law states that tobacco can't ever be sold to anyone born on or after January 1st of 2009. And then after that, the minimum age for buying cigarettes will keep going up. In theory, somebody trying to buy a pack of cigarettes 50 years from now would need to show an ID that they were at least 63 years old. I guess you can start smoking at 13 in New Zealand. Yeah. But health authorities hope smoking will fade away well before then. They want to make New Zealand smoke-free by 2025. A lot of it is driven in the UK and in other countries by the fact that they have, universal health care. And so, they're trying to keep people from have expensive health care. And the way you do that is you get rid of a lot of disease and a lot of things and cancer by people not smoking. It's just we have gone through such a change about smoking. I watched that series Mad Men.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's hardly a scene where somebody's not smoking a cigarette.
Absolutely.
I always wonder, what is it like to be an actor or an actress who has to play a period part? And maybe, you feel very strongly about not smoking, but your character requires it. I mean, I saw I watched the series Band of Brothers recently, and I watched another one called Pacific. It was done by Tom Hanks and Spielberg, about the war in the Pacific and the European campaign during World War II. And again, I mean, they were always smoking. Every single scene, somebody was smoking a cigarette. And I went, how must it be to be an actor or an actress? Maybe, in your personal life, you choose not to smoke at all, but now you get this part and you have to smoke. I mean, golly, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, some of the wild things I've seen in movies like that is that they've come to a point in movies with props where you can actually have like prop cigarettes. So you're not smoking actual tobacco or anything like that. And it's not fully as effective as actual cigarettes are, but you are still smoking something, but it's not as aggressive as it would be regular cigarettes. Now, there are some actors who still are just like, what, I don't smoke in my personal life, but I'll smoke the real thing so it looks more authentic. But
yeah, but then, then do you get hooked while you're like if you're doing a movie and you're smoking like a chimney for like months while you're shooting this movie, can you then stop?
Yeah, and then you're just hooked. Yeah, I don't know. It's such a steep hill to stumble upon.
Well, there's a part of me that says, get government out of my business, and I don't think this would ever happen in America. But it is interesting that some countries have taken that approach. I mean, we don't smoke in America as near as much as we once did. I mean, in the 50s and the 60s and even into the 70s and maybe even into the 80s, it was, there were a lot of people who still smoked, and nowadays it seems like there are fewer and fewer. They're doing other things perhaps, but I don't know. I just thought that's an interesting question. How do you, I mean, are the on one point you go, I hate it so much. I would like to see it banned everywhere. I don't want to ever encounter cigarette smoke. And on the other hand, you say, yeah, but should the government be telling you how to live your life? Well, we tell people that you have to wear motorcycle helmets.
You got to wear a seatbelt.
You got to wear a seatbelt. If you got a kid, you got to put them in the back in the kid's seat. I mean, we do things and we say it's for the health of the individual. And then, now the way that they shut down a lot of smoking is saying, well, okay, maybe you're smoking and you're okay with it, but what about that bartender who doesn't want to smoke but is now exposed to it all day long? What about the waitress? What about, those? And so that's why a lot of places went smoke-free. I don't know. It's, again, the battle between your personal freedom and doing, something that theoretically, I mean, you quit smoking, you're going to live longer. That's just a fact. There's a pretty good chance you'll live a lot longer if you stop smoking. All right. Well, anyway, I probably am more sensitive on that issue than a lot of people. I will agree on that.
Well, I'm right there with you. It makes my stomach turn every time I smell it.
It's just the worst as far as I'm concerned. And I have a lot of friends who smoke cigars, but I never have done that either. Answer the call. Maybe it's time to ban smartphones in school. Mamas and daddies, this is a great one for moms and dads. You know why many kids have phones? Because moms and dads are worried about their children all the time. And I have to say, I'm guilty as charged. My child probably had a smartphone long before probably she needed to have one. But I just thought it was, given that there's so much meanness in the world, I wanted her to be able to reach me, even, but should we have these in the classroom? I mean, what are we doing in the classroom right now? Kids are walking in, they're on their phones, they're doing social media. Are they really paying attention to what's going on in the schoolroom? We keep seeing the grades dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. Why is that? Is it because they're focused more on their phones than they are on what's going on in the classroom and actually teaching? On the other hand, as you point out, there's a lot of information that you can get on your phone that may actually help the education process. I don't know which it is, but I'm wondering if what's the policy at your kid's school? Do they have to put it in their backpack and not bring it out in class? Only use it during the breaks? Are they told they can't bring phones to school at all? I don't know what the right solution to that is. France, however, and Italy and Finland and in England, they are banning phones in school. There are no insights about the pernicious power cell phones have on attention spans. It's almost become a discussion at teachers' meetings and conferences. Parents are going on a decade of complaints about how life-sucking force their children's phones are. I remember in D.C. they were talking about trying to get the kids to be able to sleep in. Some of the high school kids sleep in for an extra hour because they found studies that said, well, if kids sleep in a little more and get an extra hour of sleep, they will actually do better in class, especially when they're growing. And there's a certain age where this really, really, really helps, they say, in the education process. And what they really found out was if you give them that extra hour of sleep, they stay up an hour later on their phones. And in fact, they take their phones to bed and they probably are chatting with their friends well after, their bedtime. So I don't know.
So here's the thing. I mean, I'm guilty of that. It was like, I'll go to bed so I can get up for work the next morning, and I'm scrolling through like Instagram or messaging a friend or something like that. I'm like, I should be asleep by now.
Yeah, I noticed you were yawning a lot today.
Hey. I saw you doing it too.
Then finally, just let me leave you with this. If you are one of those who has looked at Ozempic or maybe other drugs as a way to lose weight, popular weight loss drug Ozempic and Wegovy have been linked to significant gastrointestinal problems in a handful of patients, according to new research published on Thursday in the Journal of the American Medical Association. They found, Canadian researchers found a lot of people complained of gastrointestinal issues after they started taking Ozempic. I don't know if they're going to ban it or not, but it sure looks like a lot of people are concerned now about this because a lot of people are using these drugs for weight loss. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you, oh, it'll be ready at 4 o'clock, and then you get there and it's not ready. People are really tired of that kind of stuff, aren't they? And if you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, come to Eurofix. Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable, and Eurofix will have your vehicle ready when it's really supposed to be ready, so you're not standing around tapping your toe. Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. That's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay for virtually all of the dealer overhead. That's a lot of money. Why would you want to pay for that? At Eurofix, reliable means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every appointment. Make sure you call ahead as loaner cars are very popular. If you're tired of repair shops that are unreliable, why don't you come to Eurofix? Family owned for some 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX. Or visit myEurofix.com. One more time, that's myEurofix.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.